This is the voice of the Report of the Week, signing on. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and everyone listening. This is VORW, the voice of the Report of the Week, greeting each and every one of you with a new program. It is Tuesday the 13th of September, to my understanding. Greetings and welcome to this program and this broadcast of VORW, the voice of the Report of the Week. And here we are. It's another show. I don't have a ton to talk about. Sometimes I'll take a few days to actually get to recording the show. And in that time, I'll have ideas. I'll sometimes feel very inspired. I'll think to myself, I want to talk a lot in this program. And then I have other days where I pick up the microphone and I begin recording. And I say to myself, I don't have anything on my mind. I don't have anything to say. I have nothing that'll fill up 3 hours. But, once you get to the letters, and this is when the mail can be a godsend, really. When I don't have much to talk about at all. I'll read these letters and I'll respond to them, and I'll be able to make any interjections, comments, statements, responses. And it'll diversify the show, and people will ask questions to me that will then lead to topics in discussion that I wouldn't have previously thought of talking about in this show, so it's a great thing there. So I imagine this show will be standard length, just a fairly standard program. It's the early week, late afternoon, and here we are, VORW. Uneventful day today. Purely uneventful. Nothing happened. And that's what I got for you there. That's what I have for you. It's been about a week, maybe a week and a few days, since we got the last show out for you. But we'll get this one out to you in hopefully relative ease. But thank you for listening, and I hope you enjoy the contents of this broadcast. I'm doing okay. Channel's doing okay. That's all I have to say about that. Nothing special otherwise. Nothing special down the road. Nothing going on. Reviews. VORWs. That's it with the channel. So, it's channel's doing what it's doing, that's all. It's doing what it's doing. It's sitting there, and I'm putting up videos. So that's as good as it gets in that regard. I began uploading again from the original setting at the table. Been fiddling around with the camera. I've been using I have roughly 3 cameras to choose from. I've got the old camera, which many people before the influx will recognize as the camera that they've known the most. Roughly, analog, you could hear the tape skipping in the camera. 480p, you know how it is. Then there's the somewhat newer camera. It's a flip camera. It's about 5 years old, 2011 camera. 720p, 60 FPS. That's the one I've been using lately for the reviews in public, and some of the recent videos at the desk there. And then there's everyone's favorite camera that I use for the car. 1080p. Actually, the camera itself can actually even film up to 4K, believe it or not. It can film in that much detail, but for the sake of file size and room and space and everything in between, I prefer to go as far as 1080p. Otherwise, maybe one day I'll play around and film in, that Ultra HD, and you'll be able to look at every pore of my skin. Right, wouldn't that be everyone's dream come true right there? But maybe one day, for the heck of it, I'll film a little short video and upload what'll end up being the 10 gigabytes worth of footage in a 2-minute video. It'd be fun, though, one day to do that, maybe. Who's to say? Maybe one day. So, those are the 3 cameras to choose from, and originally in that setting I always used the 2011 camera. But when I look back at the older videos and when I compare them to today, it seems as though there's a difference. It's like someone put I don't know how to explain it. It's like someone blurred the lens real bad in the ones today. If you look at the older videos from 2011, it looks like a completely different camera, in my opinion. Perhaps not. Maybe it's just age getting to the camera. I don't know. Honestly, truth be told, I think the old camera works best in the setting at the office and at the desk there. But I mean, they would just flip if I use that today. I'm going to use it one day just, for nostalgic purposes, but I know at this point, as I mentioned in one of the videos, channel demographics have changed a lot, and more people now want to see, just HD in the car, nowhere else. And, hey. The car will be back, the HD camera will be back, don't worry. It'll be back soon. But, I think at this office I will film a few videos in the standard analog. Because I miss that camera too, I'll be dead honest, I miss it too. And I know that a lot of you who have been following this channel for years, I think it'd be a nice little treat to get it back for a few videos, don't you think? Before we go back to the HD for a while, and then I'll be back here again, and maybe we'll do that some more, but I think you know what I mean. I think it'd be fun to bring that camera back a little bit. You might be wondering, well, why don't you just film in the standard 1080p, the high quality, as people call it, the good camera. Reason I don't is due to lighting situations. It's a very sensitive camera, but lighting can get to it sometimes. I know when I'm in the car, I've filmed sometimes at night, but even then I do have, overhead lighting in the car that shines right down on my face real close, so it's able to directly illuminate, what's most important, really, the face, and being able to see some of the torso where I hold up the food to review it. But the office, we'll call it. I mean, it's a naturally dark room, although, the floor is dark. I mean, the lights aren't very bright. There's not too much external light coming in. People have complained about the lighting in the last 2 videos, and I've tried with the lighting. I have every bulb on the overhead light lit and set to their brightest. I have a fluorescent light behind the camera. I have like 6 lights in the next room on. Have the curtains open to get daylight in, and it's still not bright enough. You just gotta play around a bit. You gotta find what's right for the camera, what works out best. And once you find that little place and once you're able to adapt to it, you know, alright, now I know what works, and we'll go with that. But despite the lighting situation, I know the old camera didn't really have the problems that these other two HD cameras have had with it. You know, it's something with that camera, you just need to have the overhead lights on, nothing more, and it's illuminated just fine. No problems at all. None. Yeah. It's a great camera. You know, it's the definition of tried and true, and I feel bad for it for not using it as much as I would like, but it's amazing. It's an amazing camera. It's, as I said, the definition of tried and true. You know, you don't need to update the technology every year. You can use something that's, you know, now probably 15 or so years old, and still gets the job done. In some cases, at the sacrifice of the quality, does a better job with the lighting than even, you know, modern state-of-the-art cameras do today. Though I'm not talking about a $40,000 camera or anything. You can film anything with that, essentially, in any scenario. But that's where things stand. Of course, I did 2 reviews in that setting so far. I did a energy drink review for Monster. The review went smooth. The drink wasn't good. And then, despite what people say, the next video wasn't a review. People were saying, why wasn't the pizza there so you could eat it? Well, it wasn't a review. If you look at the Loft House Cookies video from, I think, 2015, or 2015, I believe. And if you look at the popcorn chicken video, not like it used to be. Those aren't reviews either. And the Long John Silver's review from a couple months ago, they're not reviews, they're just monologues or even diatribes that are rather critical of a particular fast food establishment. So it's just me giving my 2 cents. It's not a review. I've already reviewed the Ultimate Pepperoni Feast Pizza. That video is from, I think, 2013. It's buried somewhere. But it exists. It's out there. And you can find it if you wish. The pizza in that video was a lot better than the one I had a couple days ago. So as a result, you know, because it was such an outstandingly bad pizza, I thought it'd be worth talking about and mentioning and speaking about for a little bit. So that's that. Otherwise, it's going. Tomorrow, I'm going to attempt to get to Burger King. Try their, well, by tomorrow, it'll be their newly released Mac and Cheetos fries. Chicken fries. Supposed to have like a Cheetos coating on them. We'll get to that when it comes. We will. Yes, sir, we will. Time check. 13 minutes. Almost 14 minutes. VORW, the voice of the Report of the Week. Nothing more, really, going on. Nothing to talk about in regards to the channel. Did a few other reviews in the meantime, of course. There was one from KFC. Their Chicken Littles. Was not a good item. Was not enjoyable. Not enjoyable. Well, otherwise, I don't have a ton to talk about. We'll get to letters soon. To update you with anything going on with shortwave radio, there was a scare. There was a scare in terms of Australia. Radio Australia, of course, is the external service on radio of the ABC, the Australian Broadcasting Corporation. And back in August, Radio Australia operates on 3 frequencies at any given time. There's actually 6 frequencies in total, 3 for daytime operation, 3 for nighttime operation. And Radio Australia, at one point in August, suddenly signed off on all these frequencies, and it lasted for 11 days. No signal from Radio Australia whatsoever. People sent emails to Radio Australia wondering what happened. No response. Finally, it was said by Radio Australia staff that it was an outage and that they'll be returning on X date. So they did return and everything was good. Everyone was happy again. But people didn't really buy the theory that Radio Australia had an outage on all 3 transmitters at one time. They said, that's not how these transmitters work. Unless it was a very, very rare major problem, perhaps one of the transmitters would break. Even if all 3 transmitters broke, they still have 4 extra 100 kilowatt transmitters on standby. They could just power those up and it would be good. So unless the whole transmitter hall burnt down, they wouldn't be able to just sign off like that and just disappear. Plus, they have a second transmitting station. They have a transmitting site at Shepparton, Australia, that houses, I think, 8 100 kilowatt transmitters. And they also have a transmitting station in Brandon, which houses, I think, 3 20 kilowatt transmitters. And while those transmitters are admittedly much lower power, they could still power those up and they'd still be able to reach the intended target areas of, say, Papua New Guinea, Indonesia, Fiji, the Pacific Islands. They'd still be able to do that. What people have come to the conclusion and to the consensus is that Radio Australia was facing some budget cuts and they were pressured by the government to be able to determine listenership of the station. So they figured, we're just going to pull it off the air, stop transmitting, and we're going to see how many people write in and express concern. And if not enough people do, we're just going to pull it off the air because no one's listening. But thankfully, enough people did write into the station, and they resumed to the airwaves, and all is well with them again. And I was able to hear a nice booming signal this morning on 9580 kilohertz with some good programs there. So thankfully, enough people wrote in and gauged the, and they knew they did have a listening audience around the world still on Radio Australia via shortwave. Now, there's the external service of Radio Australia, and then there's the internal service of Radio Australia. Radio Australia also operates 3 50 kilowatt transmitters in via 3 different sites, non-directional antennas, and these 50 kilowatt transmitters broadcast Radio Australia programming to the Northern Territory of Australia, to, say, the Aboriginal tribes, to isolated people, to outdoorsmen who are, out there and not really connected with anything else. They broadcast this radio service on shortwave for these listeners. So, what do you think happened about a week ago? Even though these signals are lower powered, 50 kilowatts compared to 100 kilowatts, these signals can still be heard, across Asia and even into Europe and Western North America with weaker signals. They won't be able to really be able to listen to the station, but with the right equipment, they'll be able to hear a weak signal to know that they are transmitting on this frequency. So what do you think happens? About a week ago, all 3 transmitters sign off. And again, they make an explanation saying that it's another outage. So clearly they did the analysis of Radio Australia. They determined, all right, there's people still listening on the external service. Now let's pull back the domestic service, and let's see how many people are listening to that exactly. Let's see if we get any letters or emails from any, outdoorsmen, rural residents, Aboriginal tribes, etc. And if not, we'll just axe those and, save some money. I mean, as soon as that happened, I knew immediately that that's what they were doing. They were just gauging listenership. They were going to see how many people wrote in. Now, I didn't write into them about the domestic service because I've never actually heard that with my own receiver. I've heard them via web SDRs, but never with my own receiver, so I couldn't say I'm a listener. When they did take Radio Australia off the air, I did send an email and I explained to them that I didn't mention, I mentioned that I listened to them with seriousness, and, I listen to them almost on a daily basis to receive news and entertainment from Australia. And I don't just tune in asking for a QSL card. I actually legitimately listen and enjoy their programs, and that I only utilize shortwave, etc. But I didn't send an email for the domestic service. I figure I'll leave that to Australian residents. So it was about a week. And then this one guy from Australia who says he has internal connections with the ABC staff said that they have cut Radio Australia's domestic service from the airwaves, that it's gone forever due to budget cuts, and that they're going to take away Radio Australia's external service soon as well. Now people start freaking out because Radio Australia, it's a great station, has some great music, news, and now we hear that they got rid of the domestic service. That's a loss from shortwave in itself. That's 3 transmitters now gone. Next up is going to be Radio Australia, which is an icon on shortwave. So everyone's upset, everyone's freaking out, and then a few days later, someone actually gets a response from Radio Australia just saying, oh, due to, we'll be returning to the airwaves next Tuesday on all domestic frequencies as well. So it was a false alarm. The guy jumped the gun and scared everyone, and, turns out it was just a misconception. So Radio Australia is back on all frequencies, domestic and international, and that's good for shortwave. The Voice of Korea, North Korea's radio station, added 2 new frequencies as well, 2 additional ones, featuring programs in English, Chinese, Japanese, Korean, and I think Spanish as well. These frequencies are mostly targeting East Asia. So I don't know why they still have a Spanish transmission, perhaps for any Spanish nationals out there still. Otherwise, let's see if anything else is going on shortwave. There has been a reactivation of another station that's been off the air since 2014. Radio Rossai. That's Radio Russia. Not to be confused with the Voice of Russia, or now as it's called Radio Sputnik. But Radio Rossai is Russia's national radio, effectively. And until 2014, they had a large network of shortwave broadcasts in order to cover Russia. Of course, Russia is, in some places, especially Siberia, very barren, and I doubt internet coverage is that good, and I doubt in some places of Siberia, FM or even AM radio makes it in that good. So shortwave was still essential, and they had a vast network of transmitters to cover Russia. I'm talking, dozens of frequencies. But budget cuts got the best of them, and they left the airwaves in early 2014. Now, the smart thing of them to do is that they didn't dismantle any of the transmitters. I mean, there must be about a dozen different transmitter sites across Russia, equipped with high-power transmitters. And most countries would have scrapped these transmitter sites, sold off the transmitters, dismantled them, and that'd be that. But Russia didn't dismantle any of the transmitters, didn't take away any of the antennas. They actually maintained these transmitters and sites, even though they were completely dormant for 2 years, 2.5 years. And as a result, last week, people reported hearing Radio Rosai again on shortwave. Now, it's not a reactivation of a full scale on, 40 frequencies, but Radio Rosai has reactivated, confirmed, on 4 different frequencies. All these frequencies are being beamed to far eastern Siberia, and they are available on shortwave, featuring national and localized programming in Russian, and it's being beamed again via a reactivated transmitter site on 4 frequencies to this part of eastern Siberia. So that's great news there. This year, Russia also reactivated a station using a different transmitter site that was laying dormant. They reactivated a station called Radio Sakha, which is being beamed to Yakutsk, that region, via a 100 kilowatt transmitter and a 250 kilowatt transmitter in Russian. And again, they're using a different reactivated, Voice of Russia and Radio Rosai transmitter site for that as well. So the great thing about Russia is even though they had a vast shortwave network that is since left, they still maintain all of these transmitter sites. So should a station or organization decide to return to the shortwaves, they could essentially just pick a transmitter site and they can just flip the switch and get back on the air again. And that's what makes it so easy with these Russian stations reactivating. Before this year, Russia only had 1 transmission on shortwave, and that was it, on 1 frequency once a week, called, I believe, Radio Aegea, to, the Aegean Sea region, presumably. But they would broadcast via Krasnodar, Russia, with 100 kilowatts, and that was a former Voice of Russia transmitting site that, again, they maintained and upkept. But that was the last Russian station that was actually active on the airwaves. That was it. So it's nice to see some Russian stations returning to the airwaves, and that's at least a nice thing to see there. Has anything else happened with shortwave? Not to my knowledge. Not to my understanding. As you know, the Voice of Vietnam made its cuts, though it still is audible in North America, but for European listeners, unfortunately, their service is no longer available in Europe. But should you wish to try to be able to catch the English service to North America, it's going to be after midnight in Europe, so you're going to stay up for it. But check 7315 kilohertz, 7315 kilohertz, between probably midnight and 3 a.m. And you might get lucky and you might be able to hear the English broadcast of the Voice of Russia there. I believe that's all that I have for shortwave news today. No special broadcasts to report. There was a special broadcast of SM Radio International on 11845 kilohertz to Europe. It did make it over to North America briefly. Weak signals though. And it was a varied music program, but it was still good nonetheless. Otherwise, WBCQ, they're having their fund drive. They want $500,000 in order to maintain the transmitters, upkeep them, make new additions, build a new antenna, and be able to get more programming on the air as well, and to expand their station. So I wish them the best of luck with that. And with that being said, that's all that I have for shortwave today. And of course, you'll hear the latest updates about shortwave radio in the next edition of VORW, but that's what I have for you there. Time check. 30 minutes. We're 30 minutes in. What else is there to talk about? I think, I think it's worth mentioning. I mean, 15th anniversary of 9/11 was just a few days ago now. And, I know some people, they don't care, You're entitled to your opinions, your thoughts, your feelings. You have control exclusively of how you feel, and you can exercise that as you wish, but to me, 9/11 was always a sad day. These people, they were just going to work, and they were just living their lives. They didn't wake up that morning knowing that it would be their last day. Walking out the door, that would be the last time they'd ever see their family and those they love. They didn't know that. Nobody did. They didn't walk into that. They didn't ask for any of that. They were just doing their job, and all of a sudden tragedy struck. And there they were, helpless to their fate. An absolute horrible thing, and I imagine it must be one of the worst feelings in the world, really. To have thought that you might have had 50, 60 years left to live, and this is actually your last day, that you only have now 20 minutes to live, perhaps, as you see the smoke and flames, and as it becomes more and more difficult to breathe. It's just a horrible thing when you really think about it, but to actually imagine being in their shoes, you can't. It's a horrible thing. When I think about that, it just makes me try to be grateful and make the most of every day. And I know a lot of normies try to say in terms of living life, you're not actually living life until, you go skydiving and you swim with the dolphins and you blow $20,000 on this vacation, you go to this concert, you get this job, you eat at this restaurant, you talk to this person, you do this, this, and this. They have a whole checklist of things you should do, and if you don't do that, you're not living life and you're wasting it. I think that's the biggest crock if I've ever heard it, honestly. Make the most of every day. And that doesn't mean, going out and... if you think that does, then that's fine, but it doesn't mean by default going out with 20 friends and having sex with all these people and doing these drugs and drinking like this and going to this concert. It doesn't mean that. Making the most of every day simply means enjoying even the little things. Even if you just had a good meal. Went outside, watched the birds in the park. Saw a pretty looking car drive by. Listened to a nice music program on shortwave radio. Browsed your favorite website. Listened to your favorite song. Just doing any small little thing on any day that could even just put a little smile on your face. I think that's living to the same extent that some of these people would consider it. Just being happy. No matter something big or small that can make you happy, just being happy. To any degree. I think that's really living. That's what I think, at least. I just realize in the end with life how insignificant everything is, and the most important thing, I think, is to just not waste your life. And again, getting into what I was saying in terms of wasting life. People, again, have this textbook by default definition that your life should be lived like this. And if not, you're wasting your life. But I completely 100% disagree with that ideology. I think that if you're doing something that makes you happy, no matter how conventional or unconventional it is, you're not wasting your life. If you find contentment, solace, in whatever it is you're doing, you're not wasting your life. And if that means by doing nothing, it makes you happy, you're not wasting your life. you're enjoying what time we have here. And that's the most important thing. Because a lot of people forget how finite our time is here. And as far as I'm concerned, this is our one shot. This is it. We're never coming back after this life. So this is it. Let's say you're going to live to 80. This 80 years you have left, or at this point it's probably 60, 50 years left. That's it. That's all you've got. Find just even the little things that give you any sort of solace. That's living, in my opinion. It doesn't have to be doing this extravagant checklist of, God, if I don't skydive, if I don't swim in the Pacific Ocean, it's not living. If I don't visit London, if I don't go to Paris, if I don't walk on the Great Wall of China, it's not living. I gotta do this, I gotta get the money to do this. I don't think that's really living. I think that's, deluding oneself into thinking that they have to do this or else it's not living, but truly just being able to, as I said, just take a nice breath, just go outside at night, take a little walk, get some fresh air, look at the stars, ponder the mysteries of the universe, give a loved one a call, spend a day with, even just going out to the park, watching a movie, having a nice meal, and everything in between. I think that's making the most of every day, truth be told. People oftentimes overlook the little things, but I think it's those little things that are really most important in the grand scheme of things. That's my opinion. Everyone's entitled to an opinion of their own, and everyone has the right to agree or disagree, no problems. But that's my opinion, at least. Controversial, who knows? Unpopular, who's to say? But that's my opinion nonetheless. Well, that being said, ladies and gentlemen, I think I've exhausted my original monologue here. I think that's all that I've got for you. This is actually a good lead to what the question of the show is going to be, what the question of the week is going to be. Of course, the last question that I asked was about Bigfoot and the existence thereof. And the responses were not varied. All but one response, or maybe two actually. All but one or two responses were identical in at least what the answer was. Now, the elaborations vary, and that's what makes it interesting, but a lot of these answers were exactly the same. And I think you know what answer that's going to be in terms of yes or no, do they exist? Chances are it's the answer that you've gone with. Maybe not. Who's to say, though? But this question is going to be an interesting one. And since I was just talking about life, that's going to be a good lead to this question. So, ladies and gentlemen, with that being said, stay tuned, and coming up next will be the question of the week. And then after that, we'll read and respond to your letters sent in over the past week to this program. Look forward to hearing from them. Look forward to reading them. And look forward to hearing the responses for this week's question. If you'd like to write in with any thoughts, comments, questions, or opinions of your own at this point, do write in. You can write to us at youtube.com/user/reportoftheweek. Click on the send message button, type the contents of your message in there, and send it off to me. Or if you'd prefer something different, email me at repweekinterview1@gmail.com. That's repweekinterview1@gmail.com. repweekinterview1@gmail.com. Or write to me also at VORWinfo@gmail.com. That's VORWinfo@gmail.com. Thank you for listening. This is VORW, the voice of the Report of the Week. Fan mail portion is next. And you're listening to VORW, the voice of the Report of the Week. And this is now the halfway portion of the show, the second half of this program, the fan mail portion, where we read and respond to any letters which you have submitted to this show. Your letters may be submitted via YouTube, via the YouTube inbox specifically, or via email. repweekinterview1@gmail.com or VORWinfo@gmail.com. Whichever means of delivery you choose, your letter will get to me, and it will be read. Last show, of course, the question focused on Bigfoot and cryptoid creatures and beasts of that nature. And it debated the existence of them. Now, I gave my 2 cents, and I said, I've gone through various phases. And there were times where I did believe, there were times where I didn't believe, and there are times where I want to believe. But perhaps the evidence just isn't clear. A number of individuals wrote in. I'd say perhaps 40 to 50. And out of those individuals that wrote in, I'd say 38 or 39 offered the same answer. It was very interesting to see that there was obviously a consensus amongst the listeners here in terms of this question. The consensus was, as an overwhelming majority, that Bigfoot does not exist. That was the consensus. Now, though the answers, many of them were the same, the explanations given with the answers do have great disparity. There were roughly 2 answers, maybe 3, that said otherwise. And those answers, I think perhaps only 1 was a definite yes, and 2 were possibly. So that was it there. Very interesting results. I found that fascinating. Seems as though at least in this community, Bigfoot is just a load of baloney. Now, this week's question is an existential question. It's an interesting one. It's one I've pondered a few times myself. So we're going to give this a go. And it should yield some fairly interesting responses. Now, this question, I kind of previewed it. I kind of gave a little runner-up to it. I gave my speech on life. And I said it's going to have to deal with this week's question. I'm going to throw the question right at you, and then I'll delve into it a little bit. The question for this week's program is simply, if you were offered, say by some magical entity, if you were offered immortality, would you accept it? That means you are immortal. You will never die. Let's say, for the sake of things, you will not age either. So you will remain the current age that you are. It's not like you're going to be some 1,000-year-old, barely breathing skeleton at some point. You're going to stay the same. As soon as you accept immortality, you're staying the same. So say if you're 25, you'll stay 25. If you're 40, you'll stay 40. If you're 60, you'll stay 60. You're not going to change from your present state once you accept this offer of immortality. You will not die under any circumstance. And you will be alive for all eternity. And once you accept this offer, you have no way to reverse it. So once you accept it, you've accepted it. If you decline it, it's declined. You're never going to get this offer again. This is a one-shot deal, a one-time offer only. This being will materialize, give you the offer, and you have to make this decision. Yes or no? If you were offered immortality, would you take it? Yes or no? So that's the answer. Or that's the question, I should say. And I'm looking forward to hearing responses. Take as much time as you'd like. It'll probably be another week and a half or so until the next show, so you have plenty of time to decide on an answer. Should you have the desire to answer this question and participate, all responses are welcome. Has to be straight yes or no, though. All right, it can't be maybe. Maybe I'll take it, maybe not. This being is here right now and it needs an answer, and maybe is just not going to cut it. Yes or no? So, looking forward to hearing the responses. If I had this omniscient being materialize right here in this room as I'm recording this, and I were offered immortality, I would stop and for a few seconds I'd think about it, and I would say, no, absolutely not. Thank you, have a good evening, and go ask the next person. But if offered immortality, I would not take it under any condition. If I were to be alive forever, I would not take it. It's that simple. Because while many people with immortality simply look to the near future, and they'll say, damn, I'm going to get to live to 2100, and I'm still going to be, 20 years old. I'm going to get to drive around a flying car. I'm going to get to go into space. Going to get to travel to other stars and galaxies one day. I'm going to get to experience, this, that, all this future technology, future peoples, civilizations, etc. I can make so many investments and save my money, and I could become the richest person ever. I can do this and that and see this and that and the other thing. And, I'm going to be able to go to different galaxies one day, be able to hang with some aliens, People look at it with optimism. I look at it the other way around. I say, I'm not hopeful for humanity. 500 years from now, humanity's probably going to self-destruct. Because the people who are very optimistic for the future and say, humanity's going to be able to work together, be able to advance to this and colonize other planets, almost requires a hive mind type of civilization. And as of now, if things do remain as they are, due to cultural, religious differences, etc., it's never going to happen. It's not going to happen. I think the only thing that will advance will be some technological advancements, some militaristic advancements, etc. 500 years from now, I imagine there will be such a war, humanity will be left in ruins. That's my prediction. And everything will be for naught. Or you can't discount the fact that there might be a horrible natural catastrophe, a meteor, an asteroid might hit the Earth, might wipe out civilization. Who's to say? So, number one, I wouldn't take it due to those reasons, because there's a very high likelihood that humanity will eventually be dead very soon, and I'll be the only person left trapped on this rocky ball, and that's all I'll ever be able to do. Say even humanity is successful, eventually I prescribe to the theory that everything dies, even the universe. And eventually, no matter how advanced humanity may become, or if you end up joining another alien civilization, how advanced that one may become, eventually everything will die. The stars will burn out, and galaxies will be no more. Even the black holes will just disappear eventually. And the universe will die an eventual heat death, and it will be just an empty void of nothingness. But there you'll be, helplessly floating around in it for all eternity. You may want to die very, very badly at that point, but there's no way out. I think that's one of the worst things imaginable, to be stuck there forever. And should the heat death of the universe ever actually occur, that will happen one day, and that will happen to you. It'll be a very, 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 very long time from now, yes, but it will happen. It may very well even happen well before that. Should your civilization die out, should something go awry, should you be stuck on an uninhabitable planet with nothing to utilize, should you be stuck in interstellar or intergalactic space for whatever reason, if you get dragged into a black hole and the process of spaghettification occurs, now you're just a string that's 50 miles long, you'll still by some miracle be alive. I would never take that. Too many variables, too many risks, and I just can't see it ending positively in any way, shape, or form. But to be optimistic, perhaps you could also argue, well, maybe humanity will make such great advancements, and maybe we will find ways to, perhaps even if multiple universes exist, be able to travel to other universes, other dimensions, travel in time. Who's to say? Perhaps you could use that on your favor and, have one hell of a time. But I myself would not take that. I wouldn't. So, ladies and gentlemen, that's the question. Again, if you're interested in sending a response, if the power of immortality, and yet you can't be killed. Someone could shoot at you all they want, you're not going to die. You're not even going to feel any pain. The bullets will essentially perhaps bounce off of you, or it'll be a self-healing feature, something to that degree. You can't be harmed, all right? You can't die, You're stuck. Once you're alive, you're alive. You're not, not going anywhere. Alright, so submit your answers to one of the three means. VORWinfo@gmail.com, repweekendif1@gmail.com, YouTube inbox. Looking forward to hearing them. And now let's get to the letters. Starting with YouTube. Remember the question last week was about the cryptoid beasts. Greetings, dear lecturer. I must start by saying how glad I am that you have overcome what had gotten you down and had prevented us from enjoying VORW shows for some weeks. You're back, and I'm sure I speak for all of us viewers when I say, welcome back. I must thank you kindly for your response to my letter in the last VORW show and your advice regarding purchasing more mannequins. Unfortunately, I have seen no more mannequins at the thrift store I frequent, but even if there were, I don't think your idea of purchasing more of them and attaching your face to them would work for me. I don't know if you're joking, but I assume you were being serious, and explain that for me. If I had multiple Johns, it would break the delusion. I say the delusion because I'm well aware it is a delusion. I know that you are not really my friend, but I choose to believe you are. I know when I eat with you, you are not really with me, but again, I choose to listen to you and believe in my delusion. This is a choice because I have learned that I prefer my delusions than the reality that is thrust upon me by the outside world. I think ordinary people are plagued by delusion, but it is someone else's delusion. Maybe they watch a television show, they feel it consequential, and really it is nothing more than the current best method of distraction that will keep viewers engaged, so they will view the commercials during the break. Other people play video games thinking that what they accomplish has value, and that the time they spend isn't a waste, yet other people watch the news and believe that they are seeing is something other than propaganda and sensationalism again. All of those precious ratings that line the pockets of rich men, and the currency that is not based on anything but a group delusion that the Federal Reserve propagates. We all have our delusions. I think it gives the illusion of agency to believe that I choose my delusions. It helps me. It gives my life meaning. Then what matter is it what my delusion is? Applying this train of thought to your question, I believe that it really doesn't matter whether the Bigfoot exists or not. To those who choose to believe, if they commit to their delusion, then he exists. He could be my neighbor with size 16 feet, or he can be a brown blur on a bad photo in a remote forest somewhere. To me, all delusions are equally valid and equally vulnerable to ridicule by those who are in the majority delusion. Now I have a question for you, my dear mannequin in the flesh. You mentioned many times that you are not a moviegoer, but would that change if the movies that are being shown were not modern populist effects fests, but rather classical works of artistic cinema? No, that would not change, unfortunately. I'm not a fan of modern film today. I'm also not a fan of going to the movie theater and being in a crowded room full of strangers either. If it were an empty theater, and perhaps it was me and maybe just a small handful of others spaced out, perhaps. But given how movies today are, absolutely, I would not. I wouldn't. Movie-going for me is it's not something I necessarily like. And I say, why go to the theater when I could just watch it on television or on demand or on an online streaming service, inside in the comfort of my own home, with relatively little to no cost. So that's what I say. So no matter what is aired at the cinema, I would not make any change to that. And also, if I choose not to watch movies from the present, I could always watch a channel called Turner Classic Movies that has very lovely classic films from a different era. They'll play silent films from the 1910s, up until probably some films even from the 80s. But they usually have an emphasis on films from usually the 1930s until the late 60s. So I could always just watch movies there for free. Again, without having to go out. Have you watched The Room by Tommy Wiseau? I believe this qualifies as one such work of art, as it has only increased in popularity as time has passed with regular screenings across the globe. Would you or have you ever attended a screening of this film? If not, would you give it a shot? Personally think it's great, and Tommy Wiseau, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, is a man almost rivaling you in character and panache, although that may very well just be my delusion as well. Hoping happy tidings keep going your way, and may your golden years always be 2 years behind you, from Justin. Thank you for writing, Justin. And thank you for that. And to answer the second question regarding that airing, I think my answer to the first applies to that as well, though in private perhaps I may check it out. Hello, Report of the Week. I really enjoyed listening to the last VORW with my girlfriend, who is a fan as well, and we spend many hours listening to VORW shows while we wind down after classes or work for the day. First, to answer your question from the previous broadcast, I don't believe in Bigfoot. Like you, I'd like to believe, as it would be fun and interesting, but I feel that science and evidence points to otherwise. However, I don't discredit its existence completely. I recently saw a documentary in which a group of scientists went to search for Bigfoot. They didn't find the old Sasquatch, of course, but one thing that I did find interesting was that they found some animal droppings that had DNA that was not from any animal currently discovered. Now, that being said, I found it interesting, but not enough to completely sway me. As for my question for you, I was watching some of the first Running on Empty drink reviews from way back in 2011, the glory days, and I was wondering how you felt about those videos now looking back. Well, the 2011 reviews we're, pardon me, going to take a little sip of water here. And by the way, I'm recording this VORW now in a different setting than the last. On a different computer than the last. Using a different computer and different software. So now I have a few little paper cups, small paper cups lined up with some water. And just periodically sipping on those. Water's not good, it's just crummy sink water, but it's not any too large of an amount to do any harm. Now anyways, in regards to the videos from 2011, you mentioned how I felt about them. You know, I look back at them. I used to be ashamed of them. I used to say, I can't believe I was like that. But now I look at them almost in a melancholy manner. I view these videos and I just can't help but think and feel, you know? It's just, you know, just that blissful ignorance I had back then as to how things really were. How humanity really was. How society really is. What the future holds. Blissful ignorance is all I can say. Wish I could still have that, you know. I've learned since then the state of things, the deplorable state of things, in every aspect. You know, every aspect, things seem to be just going down the tubes. You name something and it's effectively going downhill in some way, shape, or form. But I've accepted that. But nowadays, instead of looking at that with perhaps anger and sadness, I just look at it and say I'm just going to cherish the things that are still left that I can enjoy and get some solace out of. And I just say, I'm living how I want to live right now. I'm going to keep that up for as long as I possibly can. So I'm able to cope with that and deal with it. You know, I look and I still had that, you know, just that, I wouldn't say childhood because I was older than a child, but I guess it did carry over even into my teens. You know, just that ignorance and, you know, something that you won't get back ever. You can, you know, you can be happy and you can be content. But, you know, when you're, you know, once that ignorance is gone, once the shroud is removed, you can't get that back. So it's, you know, it is what it is, that's all. You move on and you adapt and overcome. And that's what I did. But, I mean, you could see the videos back then, they were a lot more goofy, you know. A lot sillier. And, you know, the channel wasn't developed yet. I didn't really find my place yet. But, you know, now I know. Now I know what I like, what I don't like. I have my little system, how I operate, etc. And that's what we have. And one more short question. I noticed that in quite a few of your videos, you sign off with Kirk out. Are you a Star Trek fan? If so, what series or movie is your favorite? I enjoy almost all of them. Personally, as my mother was a big fan, so I grew up with the series and the older movies. Not a big fan of the newer films, but that's just me. Thanks for all you do, from Andrew Oliver. Thank you for writing, Andrew. Regular writer there. Thank you very much for writing. We have a lot of regular writers that write in nowadays. And it's great to see so many familiar faces and to be able to get that sense of, you know, community that was, you know, that really was so crucial in 2014. So great to see still. Now, with Star Trek, I like the original Star Trek, you know, from the 60s. Not too much the modern stuff. But, I mean, my goodness, William Shatner, he's looking good. He's, what is he, in his mid-80s now? You look at him, you'd say he looks maybe like he's perhaps in his early 60s. Amazing what, if you have a lot of money to blow, you know, what it can do. But, anyways. I say Kirk out. I don't say it too much anymore, but I said it in reference to a YouTube channel by the name of, or by an individual on YouTube called Tim Byrne. And he's an individual who I've followed since 2013. He's a man who would make videos of himself singing in his kitchen. And I was drawn to him. It was posted somewhere back in 2013. Mostly because he couldn't necessarily really sing. And he had, you know, thousands of videos of him singing. And, he looked, he always looked pretty well put together. He always wore, dress shirt, dress pants, tucked in, dress shoes, etc. So it always, he looked like some guy who was in the UK. Like, he was just, he couldn't sing, but he was just constantly practicing every day when he got home from work or whatever. That's what I always thought, at least. But, then he began, then he just began having problems with the person who was across the hall from him in this flat, who had a dentist's office, and, the videos began getting weirder, and I just, I can sympathize with him. I feel for him, and, now he's in some pretty dire straits, he's getting evicted because of his behavior, most likely. He doesn't want to get kicked out. He's got some money. He doesn't have a job. He's getting evicted and has to vacate by October 2nd, I think. And, right now he's convinced he's not making any preparations to leave. He's not packing or making any arrangements to get a new apartment or anything. He's convinced that when he got the letter, they wanted him to, they're trying to stop him from making his singing videos, so he's not, doing anything to stop. And the way it looks, very sadly, that he's probably going to get institutionalized in October, and he's going to lose all his stuff, and it's just not going to be a good day for him. But he would always conclude some of his videos with Kirk out, and kind of as a unknown homage to him, I would say that. And I just feel bad for him, that's all. I do. People have criticized me for commenting on his videos. They think I'm making fun of him, but I legitimately, I sympathize with him. I feel bad for him, that's all. For the next VORW, this individual writes, I very much enjoyed you mentioning Bigfoot, Sasquatch, etc., in your most recent VORW. I wanted to chime in on your next question to us regarding our opinion on the possibility of its existence, along with the Loch Ness Monster, the abominable snowman, etc. First, the Patterson film, which I was delighted to hear you reference, has been proven to be a hoax or sham, if you will, and Bob Hieronymus has admitted to being the one who wore the suit. I used to be totally fascinated by these myths and wanted to desperately believe, and still want to believe, but the cold, harsh slap of reality forces me to relegate these thoughts to be nothing more than wishful thinking. Do I completely discount the possibility of these creatures, UFOs, ghosts, and all things paranormal? No, of course not. Because anything is possible, as the saying goes. But the probability of these things being real, well, let's just say the probability of the infinitesimal is infinitesimal. Unfortunately. But just think how wonderful it would be if we lived in a world filled with everything depicted in Lord of the Rings, or Night of the Living Dead, or Mars Attacks, or any science fiction, fantasy, or horror movie, but alas, these things are just folklore and nothing more. Again, unfortunately, just my thoughts. As always, hope you are well, happy as you can be, and thanks for all the entertainment you provide for us all. Regards, from the guy who recommended Elio's Pizza to you. P.S. Here is a link to a fascinating website and radio show, which I suspect you're familiar with. If any listeners have a shed of interest in the paranormal, they might thoroughly enjoy Coast to Coast with George Noory. And he says, links to the website, coasttocoastam.com. And thank you for writing, and I remember you, very long-time listener as well. I remember you from 2014, and even I remember you from 2013, so great to have you still with us in the channel. And, as I agree with you, you want to believe. You want to believe, but sometimes, the evidence can be compelling to the contrary. Elio's Pizza, yep, it's a fine pizza. I enjoy it. I do. Review Bra, I appreciate your videos so much. My thoughts have been so awful lately, and your VORWs make me think about other things like Shortwave and you. It's hard to find positivity in a world of hatred and disappointments, and your videos take my mind off of it all. I love your old soul, and want you to know that I appreciate you, and many others do. Please don't forget that, and please keep going no matter how awful it gets. Have a decent day, from Grayson. Well, thank you for writing, Grayson, and I hope things improve for you. And no matter what, this channel will continue on. This channel will continue to operate. And no matter how dark things may get, this channel is not going anywhere. I'm going to read another letter, and then I'm going to open some windows. The windows are pretty high. They're on the ceiling, so I'm going to have to step on something to get to them, but I'll keep recording. Doesn't bother me any. Okay, what do we have next? Dear Report of the Week or Review Bra, I hope you find yourself well, enjoying the week thus far. I'm a new writer and new to your channel, and I find the VORW shows greatly relaxing and enjoyable. To answer your question from the previous installment of VORW, I do not believe in monsters, creatures such as Bigfoot, though I do find myself believing in more paranormal entities, such as beings witnessed in sleep paralysis, which seem just too real not to be true. I have one question, and that is, have you ever experienced sleep paralysis? Yours gracefully, William. Thank you for writing, William. Thank you very much. No, I haven't experienced sleep paralysis, but it sounds like a very, very scary thing. And if any of you have ever experienced sleep paralysis, I can't even fathom how scary that must be at first. Perhaps when I was... Actually, I might have experienced it once when I was a very little young child. It's an odd story. I was a young child, very young, perhaps 4 years old or so. Maybe 5. That's a long shot. I'd say probably 4 years of age. And as such a young child, if I were to wake in the middle of the night, and perhaps I didn't know why, because I did have a little fear of the dark. Back then I needed a little night light, and if I would wake up in the middle of the night and I didn't know why, sometimes I might call for my folks. They might get me a little glass of milk or some water, and get me back to sleep. Do what parents do when you're real young. So anyways, one night I wake up, and I guess this is so significant it, contributed to my long-term memory. Almost 20 years later, I remember it. And I remember I was up, got up, I called for my parents, and no one came. And I called again, and no one came, and again, and again, and again. No answer, no answer. I must have called about, 50 times. No one was coming in. I mean, imagine that, a real young child, some kid's greatest fear is, your parents just, disappearing. And for me that night, that was a reality. I kept calling and calling for them, and no one ever showed up. And eventually, I guess I must have cried myself to sleep, and that was that. But it turns out they were, as soon as I called for them, they were there, and, I must have been in some sort of perhaps sleep paralysis type of thing where I didn't see them. I couldn't, I didn't see them. I couldn't see them. They weren't there to me. And I called and called, and no one was there to me. And it was the scariest thing. Yet in reality, they were right there. And they could see me, but I couldn't see them. Very weird little childhood things. I think a lot of sometimes strange occurrences happen during childhood. And, I think that's because our brains are developing. But who's to say? Perhaps our brains are just more sensitive. I don't know. Anyways, if you'll excuse me for a couple seconds, I'm going to open this window here. Let me step on this. I'm going to put the microphone down. Okay, there we go. Got some cooler air coming in. Now there's a second window that's like that too. Let's go. Put the radio over here and I'll prop this window open. Hopefully that ought to work. Get some cooler, fresh air in here. One of the windows slammed shut. At least I know what that noise is. I have these little bars kind of propping the windows open now. Hopefully they'll hold. I want to get some fresh air. Alright, where were we? Let's see. See where we were. Hello, I know you're bogged down with messages for the VORW show at the moment, so I won't write in this week. However, I thought you might find these interesting to review. Thanks. Thank you. And let's see what we've got here. Oreo, it says, Nabisco releases Swedish fish cherry-flavored cookies. Now, apparently, there's Swedish fish Oreos available for a limited time. That's a fascinating idea right there. Swedish fish Oreos. Thank you for writing, regular writer again. Thank you very much for writing and contributing that. And, wow, Swedish fish Oreos, that's something else. Wow. Oreo, though, they come up with a lot of very interesting, creative things. They do. I always thought there was so many, there's only a finite amount of things they can come up with, but they're still going strong. Swedish fish. Swedish fish are actually, they can be pretty good sometimes. Got to be in the mood for them, though, but sometimes they can hit the spot. Yes, sir. Yes, sir, they can. Hello, review brother. I greatly enjoyed the new VORW. Thank you for continuing to produce great content while on the road and being busy with your life. Oh, and just wanted to let you know I was finally able to stumble upon your Shortwave channel. Looks like a cool channel and is definitely a hidden gem. It appears that no one in the comments section even knows it's your channel. Yep. Yes, indeed. Congratulations, though. And, thank you for writing, and things are going well right now. Hey review mate, Fraser the Aussie here. No, I don't believe in creatures such as Bigfoot. Deep down inside I'd like to believe in them, however, as you said, it's unlikely. Although, to be fair, I actually have a Sasquatch that goes to my university. His name is Dave. Review bro, what do you think of ancient history? Do you have a favorite era of history? I've been studying classics at university and I find it endlessly fascinating. Perhaps one of my favorite subjects. My favorite moment in ancient history is when Julius Caesar's main man, Brutus, stuck a knife in his gut. Imagine that, just a normal day in the Senate and suddenly your boys are stabbing you. Wasn't fun for Jules, that's for sure. Anyway, I'd like to give a shout out to my Classics clan. Shout out to Don, Shauna, and Big Daddy Dave. All the best, review bro. Well, thank you for writing. As always, thank you. And yes, the Classics clan. Don, Shauna, and Big Daddy Dave. You all have been very officially and formally shouted out here on VORW, the voice of the Report of the Week. And I think ancient history can be very interesting. I think it's something that's, it sometimes goes ignored. Who cares about some old empire that doesn't exist anymore, but I think it's interesting. Though my favorite era in history probably spans some around, probably, I'd say, maybe 1750 to 1970. And then a specific time frame would be, maybe from 1880 to 1960. So I'd prefer more modern history, but I think ancient history can be very fun as well. Dearest review bra, glad to see VORW up and running again. The newest podcast was 3 hours of delightful goodness. And as usual, keep the good work, and I hope things are doing well on your end. To answer your question from VORW 130, I'm a skeptic at heart, so I doubt and question everything from basic science to, of course, something like Bigfoot. That being said, I've always been fascinated by the occult and urban legends. While I'm always skeptical, I'm also hopeful, and I'd love for things like Bigfoot and ghosts to exist. I feel like the world has already been explored for the most part, and if none of these supernatural or legendary creatures actually exist, it would be a huge shame. I've never had a sighting or anything where I've sworn it was beyond explanations, but I'd be more than happy to see such a sight. Until then, I'll remain skeptical. Anyway, hope you have a good week or weekend, depending on when you end up reading this message. Take care. Well, thank you as always, and, no, it's, I agree. I mean, perhaps it would be fun to witness one of these creatures, but at the same time, I'd be a bit nervous, too, if I saw one of these Bigfoot in real life, and, I think it would be dangerously unpredictable, one of these creatures would be. This guy just writes, I haven't left my home in months, and haven't spoken to anyone in real life seriously for nearly 2 years. There's nothing wrong with that. Though, how do you get your food exactly? How do you get your food? How do you, collect, official mail that comes your way? And you said you haven't left your home in months, but haven't spoke to anyone in real life in 2 years, how does that work exactly? Do you live just in an extremely rural place, or if you live somewhere else and you left the home, perhaps you did talk to someone if you went out. So, I mean, there's some unanswered questions here, but there's nothing wrong with that either way, even if you are serious. Nothing wrong with that. I think that's fine. This writer says, love you, man. Thanks for pumping out more content. My pleasure. Let's see what we got here in this folder. Dear lecturer, I want to ask you how you are, but I don't want to intrude, so I hope you are well and life is going fill in appropriate trite phrase here for you. Once again, my language skills let me down with a thud. Sorry. Quickly moving on. I have a bit of an odd reason for not taking the sightings of the various creatures very much to heart, and it may be considered too much for sharing, but here goes. My mother suffered from manic depression, now called bipolar disorder, and being the youngest child by many years, I was usually the one who ended up going along with her trips both figuratively and actually. She tended towards the manic more than the depressive, so reality would become somewhat blurred. As a coping mechanism, I developed strict linear deductive thinking. I always question everything and look at the sources and motivation of any information or scenario. I should have ended up as some sort of scientist, but that actually goes against my real nature. Anyway, it means that when I'm confronted with new data, I filter it through this system to determine how well it stands up to scrutiny, and I weigh it against any previous input. To use an old phrase, I poke it with a stick and see what happens. This being said, I have yet to come across any body of work on this topic that has evidence I would give credence to. My innate personality would love there to be some secret and remarkable creatures roaming the hidden corners of Earth, and perhaps more mystery or even magic in the world, but that's not to be. To protect that side of myself, I mostly disregard such things and deal in the concrete, i.e. what's in front of me. Determining what was real and what wasn't was a skill I had to learn early, and it's part of my basic code. But the downside is my sense of awe and imagination pretty much died with it, so these creatures hold little interest to me. And that was depressing. How a little girl lost her wonderment and spark. Jeez. How odd a relatively simple question would lead to such an introspection. But that's one of the many reasons why I enjoy the VORW shows so much. My mind tends to pick apart the contents and wander off on all sorts of tangents. On a lighter note, are you looking forward to the cooler weather, or are you one of those people who finds the autumn dreary? Personally, I enjoy the cloudy, misty gray days and a bit of bite in the wind. After a long, hot, humid summer, and being able to take a great lungful of crisp fall air is wonderful. And where I live, some people have either fireplaces or wood stoves, so as I walk to work in the evening, there is often the pleasant smell of the smoke, one of my favorite things. It reminds me of many happy times. It's interesting how a smell can be such a strong trigger to memories. One of the best for me is fresh baked bread. My mom used to make her own, and when I would get home from school, especially in the fall, the house would be so welcoming, filled with the delicious aroma and the anticipation of a thick slice with butter. I enjoy the fall. I used to be, the winter can get a bit monotonous, but the fall is always a fun time for me. And I don't like Halloween. I don't like it. And every single year, I'm going to make sure I give a little rant about Halloween. It's going to be a annual tradition on VORW. I think I've done that every year so far. It's not going to stop anytime soon. But the autumn is very pleasant. As a matter of fact, it's been a cooler day today. It's, in terms of Fahrenheit temperatures, lately it's been in the 90s, very, very hot. Hot, humid, stuffy days where if you just go outside on a walk or anything, even at night, it seems almost unbearable and very uncomfortable. But lately, there's been a nice wave of cool air that's came in. Cool, dry, fresh air. And it's very, very pleasant. Now it's in the 70s, clear air, clear skies, and it's a lovely evening. That's why, as a result, I actually opened up these windows here to get some of that nice, fresh air into this room, because I think it's very pleasant, at least, and very refreshing, as you said. But I think when the leaves change color, when it gets cloudy and misty, etc., I think that's very pleasant. I like those days. I do. The little reading today is concerning gratitude, because that's one of the main ways I describe how I feel about the Report of the Week. I'm very grateful. So I guess I've told you now. I know you'll continue doing what you're doing, so I'll continue tuning in, and we'll all get through this thing called life. As always, Jackie. And the reading, very short. What is gratitude? Robert Emmons, perhaps the world's leading scientific expert on gratitude, argues that gratitude has two key components, which he describes in a Greater Good essay, Why Gratitude is Good. First, he writes, it's an affirmation of goodness. We affirm that there are good things in the world, gifts and benefits we've received. The second part of gratitude, he explains, quote, we recognize that the sources of this goodness are outside of ourselves. We acknowledge that other people, or even higher powers, if you're of a spiritual mindset, gave us many gifts, big or small, to help us achieve the goodness in our lives. Emmons and other researchers see the social dimension as being especially important to gratitude. I see it as a relationship-strengthening emotion, writes Emmons, because it requires us to see how we've been supported and affirmed by other people. Because gratitude encourages us not only to appreciate gifts, but to repay them or pay them forward. The sociologist George Simmel called it the moral memory of mankind. And that is gratitude. Thank you very much for writing. Another regular writer there. Always great to hear from you. No, gratitude is, to be grateful. I think that's a, very eloquent explanation of it posted. Thank you again. Dear lecturer, I assume I'm not the only one who wants to know what your time as a forklift driver was like. I'd love to hear what it was like. That's from Andy in the UK. Well, it was a short job. It wasn't long. I couldn't say I was necessarily qualified for the job, I guarantee you, should there have been, say, an inspector there, or, I wouldn't have been hired. It's just that simple. But, some of those jobs, they want someone who they can teach the basics to. They don't really care about. They'll pay you just a couple bucks to, move something, and, that's it. And they just want you to do some work, and that's all there is to it. They just don't give a damn about you. They just need a body. That's it. A lot of nicer jobs, and, even some sometimes less than reputable positions. Nowadays they do, better background checks and everything. But this guy, he didn't care. He just needed someone, and the folks, they wanted me to try to get some work experience, and I decided, okay, fine, I'll invest in this, and I'll see what exactly all this is about. So I did it, and I wasn't a fan of it. I always try to say I'm more of a white-collar person than a blue-collar. So actually just being out there, being in the sun all day, having to go out. I mean, you think, a forklift operator, it would be pretty easy, once you learn how to actually operate the apparatus to be able to, help move the crates to and fro, etc. You think it'd be just that, but it requires a lot more than that. You actually have to get out of the forklift here and there. You have to make adjustments. Sometimes they actually need you to help unload things. You don't actually operate the forklift all the time. So it also requires a lot of manual labor as well. And as a result, just given my body type, given how I am, it just didn't work out. And, I realized even just after a few days that this wasn't for me, that I just wasn't cut out for it. And, that was that. But, you learn. You go into something, you've never done it before, you don't necessarily know whether you'll enjoy it or not, whether you'll like it, whether it's your thing. And then once you try it for a brief period of time, you'll be able to gauge, okay, is this my kind of job or is it not? And, for me, I knew it wasn't what I enjoyed doing. But it was a learning experience. That's how I try to look at it. I wouldn't have known previously. I know now. And, that's where it ends up. It was a learning experience, perhaps even a developmental experience, but really just a learning experience. Boy. These water cups are leaking a bit because they're made of paper, so it's not the most watertight material. Oh well, it's water. And the counter doesn't care. I'll wipe it up when I'm done. It's just water. It's not any sort of sugary substance or anything that'll leave a horrid stain or anything to that degree. Let's make sure we're recording. 56 minutes. Yes, we are. Greetings, Report of the Week. I haven't written in a while, but I wanted to answer the question from VORW 129 in addition to 130. I meant to write in for this question about friends, but I didn't have the chance. I would say that I have 4 friends from high school with whom I still keep in touch and consider my only, quote, real friends. I never made any friends in college, but since I moved to a new city and my 4 friends are still in or around our hometown, I don't have much face-to-face interaction on a daily basis. I haven't been able to make any friends in my new city either. I miss them often, but only really get to see them a few times a year when I visit my parents. As for the question posed in VORW 130, I don't believe that any of these mythical beasts exist. There would need to be so many of them in order to preserve a species over years and years, across which sightings have supposedly occurred. The genetic diversity that is necessary for a species to exist, in my opinion, invalidates the idea that there are hundreds of Bigfoots or Loch Ness monsters running around and that we have just never seen them. On a slightly related note, I absolutely believe in UFOs and alien life. When I was in elementary school, I do think I saw a UFO on my way home from school one day, and I believe that life may exist in a way that humanity can't even comprehend as life. However, I do believe that the Earth has been visited by other life forms in the billions of years of existence. Do you have opinions on alien life? Thank you, and keep up the great work as always. Well, thank you for writing, and thank you for your responses to the questions. At least you're still able to maintain a friendship with those 4 guys from the high school days. Some people, if you don't talk to them in just a couple of weeks, you're not friends anymore. But at least, you're able to maintain a steady friendship with them despite the distance, and that shows a good friendship, at least, that's able to withstand those tests of time and distance. Now, in terms of alien life, yes, aliens exist, in my opinion. Now, am I so confident as to say that they have visited Earth before? I don't know. I've never seen a UFO. I've never seen anything I could describe as a UFO, so I can't say that with certainty. However, perhaps many of these UFOs are simply pranks, misidentification, or they could be government aircraft. Perhaps it really was alien life, though. Perhaps it really does exist. There have been some very strange encounters with multiple credible witnesses, even from scientific and military sources that may have witnessed some unidentified flying objects, so who is to say? But regardless of the fact if not alien life has visited Earth, it absolutely, I would say with 100% confidence, does exist on other worlds. In what forms, who is to say? Do I think perhaps small, multicellular bacteria exist on other worlds? Perhaps even in this solar system? Well, absolutely, without question. Do complex organisms, such as the aliens that we always imagine with the big eyes and the gray skin in their flying saucers and spaceships? Well, given the vastness of the universe, I would say yes as well. The frequency of these civilizations, however, that's where I think the arguments really should be at play. I think one day it will be accepted that life exists. The question then will become, we know life exists, how much life exists? Is the universe, is it teeming with life? Or is it almost a barren and empty wasteland with just a few little sprinkles of life and civilization here and there? Who is to say with that? Who is to say? But I do think that extraterrestrial life does indeed exist. Dear lecturer, I'm writing this after watching your Monster M100 review. Glad to see you back in your cozy home setting, just like the old days. To answer your Bigfoot question, I'm not sure if I believe. I definitely want to because I love the idea of cryptozoology and of the potential cryptid creatures. Bigfoot seems more believable than something like the Loch Ness Monster or the Jersey Devil. No matter how much my heart tells me to believe, though, my brain tells me that it's very unlikely that a creature as big as Bigfoot is described to be would be able to remain in hiding for so long without capture. Still, though, I hope Bigfoot and other cryptid creatures are real, as it would mean there is still some undiscovered magic in this world. Cheers from Lucas. Thank you for writing, Lucas. And I think that's starting to be a common theme. You know, similar to me, you want to believe, you think it would be very interesting and even amazing should these creatures exist. But until you actually see the conclusive proof, what is there actually to base your beliefs off of? Hello, John. To answer your question about Bigfoot, I'd have to say I'm a bit skeptical whether or not Bigfoot is real. I've had a supposed encounter with Bigfoot, in which I'm not able to explain, and it does make me wonder if there really is a 10-foot-tall beast lurking in the wilderness. The experience that I encountered was about 3 years ago, and I live near a heavily wooded area. And I knew about Bigfoot, as it has always intrigued me. I knew its supposed calls it made, how to communicate, and how to communicate with one. So I'm walking in the woods with my dog. I'm fairly deep in the woods, and as I'm walking on a rough patch of terrain, my dog shoots its ears up and has that attentive expression, looking in one direction and acting very alert. Naturally, I'm on edge because the first thing that comes into mind are bears. So I stay where I am for about 15 minutes and conclude that it clearly is not a bear. So my mind starts wandering, and I say to myself, what if it's a Bigfoot? So I attempt to communicate with it. To communicate with a Bigfoot, you're supposed to bang a stick against a tree. Yes, indeed, that's what they call a wood knock. And if there is a Bigfoot, it will bang back. I take a large stick and bang it against the tree closest to me. I wait, and I hear 2 faint knocks in the distance. At this point, I'm freaking out, so I hurry out of the woods. To this day, I still cannot explain the source of that knocking, what that sound was. If it was just some stupid kids screwing around, which is unlikely because it was so far out in the woods, or it really was a Bigfoot, I can't say for sure, but if there is a Bigfoot out there, so I've never seen one, but what I have heard, it really makes me think. Anyways, I hope all is well from Nick P. Thank you for writing, Nick. And that's an interesting story. I think it's the only actual plausible. I kind of made my own little word. I combined it, plausible and possible. Plausible, that sounds like a silly word, though. We'll just say potential encounter of Bigfoot. I think that's the only potential encounter that was submitted to this show. But very fascinating, it could have been many, many things. But what if, right? There's no way to prove or disprove it. Yes, it may say, well, there's so many variables at play. It could have been anything making those knocks. It could have even simply been a large branch falling, or some animal could have kicked up a rock, and it could have hit some trees, and it could have just naturally made those knocks coincidentally after you made your knock, because it could have perhaps scared some animals, or could have shaken something and disrupted a branch, or could have, as I said, scared a deer, and it just ran pell-mell and kicked up some rocks. Or it could have been a person messing with you, could have been some other animal, or it could have been a Sasquatch. There's no way to prove if that was or wasn't. You weren't there to see what made those knocks. You cannot say it was definitely not a Sasquatch. You can say, I just don't know. Very interesting, I think. But, you know, who's to say? Until now, though, there is not yet a body or any conclusive DNA samples. You know, a few hairs that don't match up to anything. Who's to say for certain, though? Very interesting story, and thank you so much for your contribution there. I really enjoyed hearing that, and it was a pleasure to read. Thank you. Sit back here on the perch. Now let's check the next folder in the YouTube inbox. Reach over here and grab one of the leaky paper cups and take another sip of this excellent tasting sink water. It's disgusting. Ugh. How people actually guzzle down glass to that, I don't know. Water is water, absolutely, and water is something that should be cherished and savored. But if you find yourself in a situation where you have multiple types of water to choose from, you know, I don't know why I'd go with this. Especially, you know, what people say about the pipes and all that good stuff. Who's to say? And what might be in the water supply. But I'd need to know more about those theories before I say anything there. Dear Review Bra, I recently discovered your channel, and I've been enjoying your VORW series. I'd love to ask you a few questions about art, since you indicated a personal interest in the subject in a podcast. Unfortunately, I'm unable to reference a number of said podcasts, as I've been listening in random order, but in your recording, you cited a special appreciation for American landscape painting. Do you have any favorite visual artists, and if so, who are they? What do you think about modern art, 1950s onwards, and contemporary art? Have you ever been to any art exhibitions recently? And do you practice any form of visual art yourself, like drawing or painting, for example? Personally, I appreciate the work of many artists. I could list many favorites, but a couple that immediately spring to mind are Vincent van Gogh and Francis Bacon. I recently visited a Rauschenberg exhibition, and his work was quite a spectacle to behold. I also enjoy painting and drawing myself, and I hope this message finds you well. Although I don't know you and I'm new to the channel, you strike me as a kind-hearted person with good values. Best wishes from the UK. Thank you for writing. And I think, you know, in terms of art, you know, modern and contemporary art is always, it's interesting, but I'm a fan of the more, you know, more classical types of artwork. I remember with art, I've always been, in terms of personal work, you know, an abstract artist. Now, sometimes I'll make little drawings and sketches, but it's always abstract in nature. If I were told, say, to paint the scene of this room I'm standing in right now, would I be able to do it in detail and do a good job at it? Absolutely not. I would not. That would be, to me, almost impossible to do. I remember, though, a good story on the topic. I was young, and I was in school, middle school, many years ago, and there was a class project in the art class where you were to go through a book of art, select a work, a fairly famous work, and then attempt to replicate it. Now, personally, I find that project, looking back, to be a very idiotic one for young children to do. To try to have a painting from one of the greats in the field, someone who is just one of the best there is, and then to try to actually replicate it, and then place the two side by side. I mean, I understand it's just something, to make the parents feel good about their kids. Oh, look at what my son or daughter did. But, I mean, to just see some little kids drawing next to one of the most, famous artists in histories, it's you cannot compare the two. I think it was a silly project, and at this point, all I can see is it's just something that the teacher would laugh at when they're grading it and say, oh my God, this guy tried to paint the Mona Lisa, look at this stupid thing. But anyways, I decided to go with a landscape portrait. I forget what it was specifically, but it was pretty. It's like in a tropical setting, perhaps. Maybe it was India, maybe I can't say that for certain, but it's like looking down a road, and there were exotic trees on either side, and fields, a road veering off to the sides, and stone structures on the far left in the distance, some puffy clouds on the horizon. It was a very pretty picture. And I went with it. I had an easel, had paint. I did my best to paint the thing, put it on display, and you know what people said about it? Oh, and remember, I was trying to replicate this landscape portrait. I tried my very best to do this. I mean, I worked every day for weeks on this, for this class. And when I was on display, people said, oh, wow, that's a very nice abstract interpretation of that piece. And I couldn't say insulted, but I was kind of ashamed of myself. I tried so hard to replicate this piece, and it looked so little like what I was actually trying to replicate. It was simply taken as an abstract work. And I realize now, if I do something in abstract nature, perhaps a drawing, it always works out exponentially better than actually trying to actually make a landscape or replicate any sort of work in that regard. But I always appreciate any art, even if it's submitted by listeners, because I realize it takes time and energy to even make a simple drawing in MS Paint. So I always appreciate that and all the effort put forth by people that make any fan art submitted to this show. Now that said, thank you very much for writing, and have I been to any art exhibitions lately? I have not. I haven't gotten out that much, but should I ever find anything of interest, and should I be willing to take the leap and the risk of going to it, perhaps I'd give it a go. Again, thank you very much for writing, and welcome to the show. On to the next. Alright, this next writer states, "Hey, Review Brah. Hope you're doing okay. I wanted to talk to you because you're a personality I can respect. I've got 3 or 4 things I'd like to bring up. First off, it seems like you've been getting a lot of prank or meme messages. These are honestly senseless and they detract from the flow of the fan mail segment. While your response can often be funny, these messages always infuriate me. I hope I'm speaking for a lot of your fans when I say a filter would be nice. I know you're all about free speech, and that's why you brought the comments back, but it's really irritating to see people disrespect you and VORW. Yeah, as blame the change in demographics, that's all. Thankfully, the food reviews take the brunt of that, because a lot of people aren't willing to sit and listen to me for 3 hours, so it's a relatively, it's a safe zone in that regard, but, you have a lot of immature haters that have, came in with a lot of a lot of great fans as well in this period of growth of the channel. You know, you get a bit of good and a bit of bad that comes in with a lot of new subscribers as well. And thankfully, a lot of those people don't have the time and, you know, as I said, patience to listen to a whole VRW. But no, you're right. These things slip through sometimes, and I understand. But you can at least understand and know that for this show, it's pretty clean in terms of the amount of meme messages that may have slipped through the cracks, at least. I mean, who knows? Maybe I'm reading messages that I think are sincere, and I'm just being had every time. Who's to say? Anyways, in response to your question about friends, I have several good friends in my life around my region of the U.S., and I try to see them regularly between semesters. However, I only have two incredibly close friends, my girlfriend and my best friend, and I could easily trust both of them and with my life, and I'm honestly very grateful to have them in my life. My best friend recently took me and my girlfriend in for a couple of days when she got kicked out of her home. Things have gotten better now. Me and her are moving out together soon, and I'm incredibly grateful to him. In case he's listening, can you give a shout out to B-Boy Brian? Absolutely. B-Boy Brian, you have been very formally and officially shouted out by the Report of the Week here on VORW. Fourthly, you talked in VORW number 130 about self-driving cars and how you have a distaste for them. That saddens me, as it is my dream job to work for Tesla and help develop and improve the autopilot software. I think the prospect of a forced automation is disgusting. No one should ever be forced to do something they don't want to do, but with the state of the election and the nation, I'm sure it's more than possible. Ultimately, self-driving cars should be developed alongside manual cars, and if you remain adverse to the idea of self-driving cars, I'd always defend the rights to drive free, so to speak. Your writer pointed out that it is distasteful to have human lives as a guinea pig for this new technology. I'd like to inform you and your listeners that the Tesla crash your writer referred to, the driver was well aware he could reobtain control of the car in an instant, and that the driver was reportedly watching Harry Potter instead of the road. There are faults in automation, as in any technology, which may cause deaths, but nobody is testing these products maliciously. Everyone who died is in an automated accident, or anyone who has died in an automated accident is legally well aware of the risks they took in trying new technology. Anyway, I hope I didn't make you or any of your audience too angry. Thanks for giving me the time, and keep up the great work, man. Still my favorite channel. Sincerely, Kenneth. Thank you for writing, Kenneth. And, no, in terms of the self-driving cars, well, I'm not a big fan of any self-driving feature. I think the forced automation is not a good thing. It's not something that I support and not something that I'm a fan of. But I think, it should be. I just think it's something that I don't know. I would never get into a car like that. It's just me, though. All right, thank you very much for your time, and thank you for writing. We now move on to the email, kicking it off with repweekinterview1@gmail.com. That's repweekinterview1@gmail.com. Okay, let's move it up here, and let's begin. Dear lecturer, just wanted to send you my fond regards, and to hopefully give you a chuckle by showing that not only do I enjoy your VRWs, but my pet turtle does too. In response to the question on the existence or non-existence of Bigfoot, etc., I have to say that as someone who aspires to be a rationalist, I'm forced to say that it is always possible that some or all of these creatures exist, but it seems highly unlikely. And given how inquisitive our species is, if they did exist, we likely would have found them by now. Also, in light of all the perceptual errors and cognitive biases that plague our brains, chances are that when people claim they have seen one of these creatures, they likely just saw a shadow or something similar. Anyway, thanks for letting me yammer. Take it easy and be good to yourself, John. Well, thank you for writing, and that was nice to see your pet turtle, too. And that's a fair approach to it. That is, I think a lot of people do mistake Bigfoot for, for something that really is not a giant ape-like creature. Dear lecturer, somewhat new listener to VORW, first-time emailer, just wanted to express my gratitude to you for making this wonderful series that I can listen to while I work on awful experimental artwork that my BFA allows me to create or fun post on certain image boards. I feel that your attitude and quality of content is what attracts people to you. I first knew about you from some meme pics and nothing more until YouTube graced my suggested videos with a familiar face. While I admit I started watching you with a certain dark humor in my heart, the way I regale the greatness that is CWC or Joey's World Tour, over time you've won me over, and undoubtedly many others like me too. The main thing that got me into VORW was how you talk about shortwave and the web SDRs, as while I'm not as experienced or fanatical about it, I have taken to listening to the SDR upon occasion in past as I went through college, mainly for finding broadcasts and the like. As for the question this time, while I would love for some of these cryptids to be real until substantial evidence is presented, the realism of such fantastical beasts must be relegated to the imagination of my childhood self. Thank you for your time. Thank you for writing. And, here we go. Our next letter. Let's take a little sip of water here. Okay. Dear lecturer, first of all, your question regarding whether or not Sasquatch exists. Living in the arid regions of Southern California, I never expect to have a sighting, much too warm here, and it would be nearly impossible for an 8 to 12 foot shaggy beast to find a place to hide. Our environment tends to low-rise architecture and lots of open spaces. That said, your question reminded me of an event that occurred when I was about 8. I was chasing the family cat through various backyards of the neighborhood where I grew up. I had no harmful intentions towards the cat. It was just something I liked to do in my time. Anyway, during a routine chase, I rounded the left corner of my house, headed out the gate to the front yard, with the cat well in the lead. But as I passed through the gate, instead of the cat, the front lawn, flowers, trees, and the house across the street, I saw a dusty, barren plain devoid of vegetation. Instead of the cat, I saw a heavily laden pack animal being led by a man wearing a serape with a wide-brimmed hat shielding his eyes. He did not appear to see me. I stopped for a moment in surprise, blinked, refocused, and he was gone, and the neighborhood had returned to normal. But for a few moments it felt like I had gone back in time and might have occupied several hundred years or more earlier. You might wonder what all this has to do with Sasquatch, and I have a half-formed belief that what we see isn't always just what's there. It might be that once in a while the dimension of time slips a cog, and we see what might have come before, or what might come in the future. Or I could have been lightheaded from chasing the cat in the summer's sun. All that to say, I don't believe in Sasquatch, but I don't not believe either. But I do believe the world is a much more interesting place if once you see things that aren't there. Secondly, I'd like to address the question from your last VRW about why people would want to listen to you talk about avocados. The best answer I could come up with is you have a gift for making what you talk about seem interesting, whether I was previously interested in it or not. One of my college science professors had the same gift, which is the only reason I knew anything about geology, although to be honest, I've forgotten most of it. The bottom line is that some things don't need to be examined. People tend to like what they like. In addition, you have a unique and engaging speaking voice. It's a voice with a personality. As a side note, however, ever since your reply to my avocado question, I can't look at an avocado without thinking of knife accidents and the word pasty. Hopefully I'll forget about that soon, too. A random quick question for you. When you were a kid, was there one birthday you remember better than all the others? And for what reason? Maybe a gift you received or becoming a particular age. However it stands out for you in a good way. Although in my personal experience, birthdays peaked at the age of 10, and it's been all downhill from there. Best wishes and a good evening from PS. The props of your recent time on the road, travel-themed fan art attached. Thank you very much, and thank you for the wonderful fan art. You always do an excellent job, and you really, wow, it's incredible that you've been, doing a piece almost on a weekly basis. That's amazing. Thank you for all the time you invest in that. Thank you. Very lovely work. Birthdays nowadays, I see it as just any other day. My birthday, at least. Perhaps other people's birthdays, I don't necessarily see it as that. I see it as a special day at which they entered the world. But me, I see my own birthday as another day. That's it. So my own birthday, it's not important to me. I don't do anything special for it. And that's all that is. Now, of course, as children, we normally don't look at it like that, and I didn't, to be quite honest. So when a birthday for me came around, my folks would do something. And I remember a fun childhood birthday. When I was younger. It was at some, like, birthday party place. I don't know the exact terminology for some establishment such as this, but it's a venue for kids to throw a birthday party. It has a giant play place in it, has slides, a ball pit, all those fun little games, and they'll order pizza. It's a fun thing for the kids. But again, I don't know the exact term for such a venue. But I remember I went there once, and it was such a fun time. Invited the whole class, and they all showed up. And it was a very fun and enjoyable time. And it was nice. It was a nice birthday. I also remember having a birthday, and a couple years later, and it kind of reflects my my popularity when I was in the school system. And a couple years later, when children start having actual insight about friendships and who they consider friends and whatnot, where it was hosted at a like a laser tag place. And again, the whole class was invited. That's what they would, do for children's birthdays. Everyone would invite the whole class, and it was a nice socialization opportunity for the children and also for the parents. And usually the whole class would show up, and, it would be fun and whatnot. Well, I had it at this laser tag place, and the whole class was invited, and who showed up? Out of like 20 kids, 25 kids, no one. And that was it didn't bother me any. I didn't realize it at the time due to childhood ignorance. But I mean, again, now with my own perspective of of friendship, it doesn't bother me. I like I don't like being around a ton of people, so that's no problem of mine. And as a kid, it didn't bother me either, you know. I was just happy because it was my birthday. But I feel bad for my folks, you know. You know, I guess they realized that no one really considered me a friend at all. You know, when you invite 20, 25 kids and not a single one shows up and bothers to show up, you know, it must have been kind of hurtful for, you know, for my parents. You know, they threw the whole thing expecting that, you know, expecting that all these kids would show up, and no one ever did. So, I mean, I haven't really thought of this experience in a while, but now I realize how sad it was. But nonetheless, I still had fun. You know, there were other people there who teamed me up with them. I still had a lot of fun that day. It was a very fun experience for me there. So I think in the end it wasn't too bad, because I still, you know, despite the fact that no one who was invited showed up, at least I still had a lot of fun myself and had a smile on my face, and I guess that kind of made up for it. So, you know, it doesn't bother me any, but I just felt kind of bad for them looking back. Anyways, thank you again for writing, and thank you again for your wonderful work. Hello, lecturer. To answer your question regarding cryptids, to be honest, I have never heard of cryptids until listening to your show yesterday. But based on the info I learned through Google within these past 24 hours, I don't think they exist. Although what I read is fascinating, especially the intricate details that are written about Bigfoot's features that distinguish him from the common ape or monkey species. In a YouTube video of Bigfoot walking, he does seem closer to being a human more than an animal, so it'd be nice if a species like Bigfoot, who is in between human and animal form, actually walked this earth. However, I'm open-minded to changing my view if someone comes forward with legitimate evidence to prove the existence of cryptids. By the way, I just wanted you to know that listening to your food reviews and VORW shows has really helped me cope with daily life, especially these past few weeks, which have been very difficult. Since the last time I wrote you about my godparents being part of my close circle of friends, I regret to inform you that one of my godparents has passed away. Her death was the same week you uploaded a video update of you being out in hiding, and she was diagnosed with cancer this spring, but by then it was too aggressive for chemo treatment. Losing her feels just as painful as losing a parent or a best friend. Anyways, I've attached you some fan art, and you have my permission to feature it on your next show, if you wish, if it meets your standards. Just to clarify, that little fellow next to you is a minion from the movies called Minions and Despicable Me 1 and 2. Collecting these toys is a hobby of mine because I think they're cute. Have you ever heard of these movies by any chance? Take care and hope you stay safe, and well, as always, from Sophia. Thank you for writing, Sophia, and thank you for your message. I'm sorry to hear about the loss. I know it's never easy, you know, when coping with, you know, with death and loss. I know it's not, and I know saying things in consolation really doesn't help. I know one of the best things that does heal it is time. And I know with time that, you know, things will go better. I know it's never easy. Loss, it's never an easy thing. Really, it never is. And time will heal the wounds, and eventually, you know, we'll, you know, be able to, you know, look at things positively and look at the positive memories and experiences and all of those nice memories. But I'm very sorry for the loss, and I know any loss is very difficult to really just say it like that. It's extremely difficult. Extremely difficult thing. I remember back a few years ago, You know, I had a friend online whose, I think it was his uncle died. And he had the opportunity to visit his uncle just a few days before he died, and he declined that opportunity because he'd rather, you know, play video games. And, you know, that was very difficult to get over because he had the grief and guilt from that to have to live with as well. But I know having to deal with loss, it's never easy, and there's very few things to even say in regards to it that do help, but I know time will help, and I know it's a very difficult thing. Thank you for writing. Dear Review Bra, on the matter of whether or not I believe in elusive creatures such as Bigfoot and Loch Ness Monster, I believe, quite simply put, that they may or may not be real. I for one say that no encounters of any sort of fabled fabled beast, not a fabled beach. No, there isn't any sort of fabled beach. I for one have had no encounters of any sort of fabled beast, and I go camping and hiking in the Rockies monthly. Needless to say, I respect other listeners' beliefs on the matter. As for me, I'll remain 50-50. Also, I haven't been able to write in for some time, and I must apologize. However, I have certainly been listening to each VORW since my last letter, and I'm happy to once again write in. During my absence from writing in, I was also able to make you a YouTube banner for your channel. You may do with it as you please. It may look odd, but trust me when I say it does fit in the YouTube banner dimensions. Hope this letter finds you in good spirits, and I hope you have a good evening. Well, thank you for writing, and, well, that's cool. Thank you for that, and I'll definitely give it a go and give it a shot, and, perhaps I'll put that as the banner for the YouTube channel for a bit if it fits. Thank you for your time, and thank you for your effort, by the way. Greetings again, lecturer. That was a very nice VORW, one of my favorites for sure, and was well worth the wait. I think the listener questions really make for some good discussion, especially the recent ones. To answer this recent listener question, I am a skeptic regarding Bigfoot, but it is possible they could exist, as in probably a 1% of a 1% chance. Just highly unlikely, basically. I was looking up videos of Bigfoot footage on YouTube, and there is some moderately compelling images that could show a real-life Bigfoot creature, but it isn't solid proof. Now, I agree. The one piece of evidence that I still can't wrap my mind around, not necessarily the Patterson-Gremlin film. I mean, that has so much debate, but one thing that isn't, I mean, it's talked about a lot, but it's not completely discussed, is from, I think, 2000, the Sarasota, Florida skunk ape photographs. I mean, listen, no matter what is in that picture, that thing is creepy. I mean, if you decide to pause if you don't know what I'm talking about, if you want to just pause it, even just look up, look it up just to be safe and make sure you're looking up the right thing here. Let's put the recording down. Let's look up skunk ape photographs. And it should be, yep, it's the first result. You'll see the full line right there. It's the picture I'm talking about. And, I mean, no matter what, even if that's someone in a suit, or if it's a type of orangutan, or if it is an undiscovered creature, I mean, that thing is creepy. I mean, imagine if you hear something, banging around in the woods, and you walk out there with just this little disposable camera, and you take the flash, and that's what you see just like 3 feet away from you. That is scary right there. Wow. No matter what, even if that was just a wild animal, or if it was some sort of creature, or even if it was someone in a suit, I think that was a good job. I think that's for me, the most compelling photograph there is, no matter what. misidentification or otherwise. Now anyways, back to the letter here. I'm fine with it just being a mystery, however, it would be pretty interesting if actual Bigfoots were found and captured, clearly on footage or captured in real life. Your question got me curious. Do you browse X on 4chan? I think I recall you mentioning spooky, scary skeletons in one of your VORWs, plus this question, so I'm curious. Now, I don't browse X at the current time, but I used to. I used to go there. And it was, there were some interesting threads on that board, to my recollections, but it was also filled with garbage, like someone saying, yeah, I heard a zombie rooting through my trash last night, or they'll post some clearly photoshopped image, and they'll say, I think I saw a ghost. But, no, I remember there was some entertaining and amusing discussion on that board, but I haven't been there in a while. Back in 2014, there was actually, early 2014, there was someone from, back when I would talk to people on the WebSDR chat, and I had a whole little group of people that I knew. One of the people was from X. They would browse it regularly, and would contribute to some of the numbers station threads on there. Another few questions for you. Let me just... If I understand, it's too personal. And I'll reply to these, maybe I'll send you a personal reply on that, if that's okay. I just hope you understand. But no harm there, don't you worry. All is well. And thank you very much for your questions. And thank you for writing, long-time listener there. And thank you for your understanding as well. Let's see what we got next. Let's see here. Dear Report of the Week, although I am a big fan, this is the first time I've decided to submit a letter for this segment. As for the Bigfoot question, it is certainly not impossible for such a creature to exist. I don't believe it does. If it would exist, we would certainly have discovered such a big creature. I have one question for you. A couple of my friends and I have made a motto that we try to get everybody to say, and we would certainly be humbled if a famous celebrity like yourself could proclaim it with us. So could you please say out loud, yes I will, it is prime time. Well, there you go. It is prime time. That's me enthusiastically saying it. Thank you in advance from the Netherlands. So thank you. And I don't consider myself a famous celebrity, but thank you. And thank you for writing, and if you ever want to write in again, feel free to. Well, my dear lecturer, the summer has come and roasted the leaves golden, and now autumn has once again fallen upon us. Before we know it, winter will settle upon us again, and so will the end of 2016. Shocking, isn't it? How can we burn through a whole year so easily, as if it barely even happened? I remember what I barely remember what I even did this year. Perhaps I am to blame. I find myself fixed to the same tasks, the same hypnotic rhythm day after day. No wonder time feels so fleeting. Perhaps I should keep a journal and write what I did on that day. It's just out of the curiosity of knowing what I did and what I thought of it at the time. Maybe an interesting habit. I like autumn. The temperatures drop, and that means we can wear more clothes, which means more room for accessorizing. Waistcoats, hats, gloves, thermal socks, umbrellas, coats, etc. I remember back in the 2000s how much I loved hiking up the side of the mountain, foraging for herbs and dandelion leaves. Not many people know you can actually eat dandelion leaves. You can cut off the roots and boil them like spinach. In fact, they taste very much the same. Then there's Halloween. We never had a Halloween where I grew up, but it's not really my thing anyways. I don't like getting dressed up, and I certainly don't enjoy getting my face painted. How about you? What are your favorite aspects of autumn? Well, I briefly mentioned this earlier, but, again, I like the cooler temperatures. I even enjoy some of the darkness, how the leaves change a bit, that little bite in the air, how that just very thick, heavy humidity from the summer months is almost gone. I just enjoy that. I even like how it gets dark out earlier. How I can take a walk in the dark and with the cool air hitting me. I like that. Some of the gloomy days that come along with the season. So I certainly do enjoy all of that. Now, regarding this week's question on cryptic creatures, I'd say yes. Although I have never witnessed one myself, I absolutely do believe they exist. We like to think that we have a pretty good grasp on what lives on this earth, yet there are so many places we have yet to explore. In fact, every year we have new, weird, and wonderful animals discovered, some we never would have thought possible. Let's not forget the greatest mystery of all, the deep sea. We've barely scratched the surface, or floor, I should say, of it all. Millions of years ago, we crawled out of the ocean and evolved into the pizza-loving, skinny jean society we live in today. What if some of us didn't crawl out and we instead sank to the bottom of the ocean? Maybe there's a whole civilization of intelligent beings with their own Five Guys burgers and YouTube Let's Players. Just like we can't reach those depths due to water pressure, they can't reach us for the same reason. It's just a thought, mind you. Anyway, I must sign off now. I wish you all the best to you and your family. Keep on reviewing, and may your radio receptions always be a 9.8 out of 10. With kind regards from Basil. Thank you for writing. And, thank you very much. No, you never know. You never know. And, best wishes to you. And, very good radio reception to you as well. Nice to see a fellow Shortwave listener as well. Hey, Review Bro. I've caught interest in your YouTube channel after I listened to your VORW show 130. I've been subscribed to your channel since 2015, but I've rarely watched your videos. Most of the time I just open some of your videos and leave a like without watching them. I am planning on watching some of your older videos and listening to some of your other VORWs. At the moment I have only one real-life friend, which I talk to on Facebook about once a week, and 3 online friends. One of my online friends is soon going to work abroad for 6 months, so I won't have any access to the internet where we can talk. I am soon starting college, so I hope to make some new friends, although I've had the exact same thought before I started high school, so I'm a bit worried about it. I'm usually open to any sort of discussions, but my only interests are video games, internet, and politics. I've yet to find someone in real life who shares the same interests as me, and I doubt I will due to my social anxiety and being extremely shy when it comes to interacting with other people. So shy that I am too afraid to even go to a fast food restaurant to order something. And I said, I know it sounds stupid, but I don't think it does. I mean, I have those same worries myself, so don't you worry. In real life, I like to be alone. However, I want to have online friends so I can have someone to talk to. I never told my parents about me liking to be alone, because they would think that I am weird, and I think they could go as far as to even kick me out of the house because of it. I was never interested in being in a relationship. I don't know why, I never saw a point of it. Quick question, have you ever thought about becoming an Uber driver? I never had a car, however the idea of being one sounds interesting to me. Thanks for reading. Thank you. I'm not a fan of that. I mean, it requires you to be an extroverted individual as is, and therefore, as a result, you'd have to be comfortable with letting plenty of strangers into your car and expect them to be the people who they claim to be. I'm not a fan of that. Would be some money, yeah, but You know, I myself am personally just not a fan. Yeah, right there, that. Alright, I'll stop tapping my foot. Hello, my friend. In regards to your question, I think creatures such as Bigfoot, the Loch Ness Monster, and other cryptid probably do not exist. Most can be explained either by mutated animals or by people making stuff up. However, I do not completely rule out the possibility of their existence. Maybe there are small populations of strange or previously thought extinct creatures in remote parts of the world that occasionally cross the paths of humans. The same goes for any supernatural phenomenon. Here's a question for you. If you were banned from wearing suits or other similar formal attire for the rest of your life, how would you choose to dress? Thanks for the great content. Keep it up. From Josh. Thank you for writing, Josh. You know, if I was banned from wearing suits or any sort of formal attire for the rest of my life, I would find the next best thing. If I could wear a polo shirt and khakis, I'd wear that. If I could wear a t-shirt and jeans, I'd wear that and tuck the t-shirt into the jeans. If I had to wear a silly jean jacket everywhere I went, I'd wear that too. I'd just find the next formal alternative, no matter what it may be. If wearing a penguin suit was the best thing I could wear, I'll wear that. That's what I'll go with. I'll just find the next best alternative. On to the next. Let's see what we have here. Alright, we're here for the next letter. I'm not gonna lie, I did take a brief break and I got a cold drink here, some root beer. Boylan's root beer. In a glass bottle. I took a break because I was actually recording for 2 hours straight almost. So I thought I could take a little well-deserved rest for the throat. Hopefully. Hope you all understand that. Not that anyone could tell there was a break, except now that I interjected so. But, there was but a small break. Anyways. A good day to lecture Papa. Let's get right to it. I find it inconceivable that a Sasquatch-type animal exists undetected in the wild. Much like UFO sightings, the evidence I have seen is always better explained by other phenomenon. I reckon that we could have cleared away some habitat and found bodies or other evidence of their habitation by now. Furthermore, even if these man-beasts are ferocious and leave no survivors, well, a human isn't exactly low on the food chain. Someone would have come back with a nice Yeti pelt guaranteed. The evidence just isn't there. And as a scientist, my skeptic instincts are through the roof. Have you got a Trader Joe's nearby you? Going back to the days when you would review frozen groceries, I think that Trader Joe's superb selection of quick and easy meals would be a blast to watch you review, especially as they always have new products coming through. In particular, their family-style meat lasagna is fabulous, and their mac and cheese, and their Indian dishes, lamb vindaloo, is to die for. I would wager they also have an energy drink or two for some more energy crisis. For your taste buds' sake, I hope there's one nearby. You asked about the weather out here. It's been, well, boring. 80 and sunny every day. I'm not complaining, though. You hear people say, but I need seasons. Well, keep them then. I'll take a placid paradise, sans clouds, any day. That being said, if you were able to send us some water, well, that'd be appreciated. The drought is still going strong, even if the media has stopped talking about it. Unrelated channel question. With the world in such disarray and the American political system not exactly stepping up to save the day, do you have a plan, just in case you know what hits the fan? Without places like Popeyes, I fear you'd be reduced to reviewing irradiated MREs over shortwave. I don't want to ramble too much longer, but I'll leave you with a tune from my favorite contemporary jazz band, Bad Bad Not Good. And he linked me to this one. I'll mention the, it's called Bad Bad Not Good. That's the band's name, Bad Bad Not Good. And he says their whole album is simply amazing. Keep on riding the gnarly wave of internet infamy, your friend in California, Alex. Thank you for writing, Alex, as always. Great to hear from you. And I have somewhat of a plan, at least. I mean, let's be silly and let's say zombies rose from the dead, you know, and it was like The Walking Dead. Yeah, I'd die. It's just that simple. I've accepted fate there. I know I'm not going to be around forever if that's the case. You know, but you know, a basic plan and some materials, yes. But would I say I'm overstocked? No, I wouldn't. But would I say I'm overstocked? No, I wouldn't. But you know, I do have a little bit of a plan at least, and thank you for your music recommendation. Thank you for writing. On to the next, dearest review bra. Report of the Week, voice of Report of the Week, or John, if I may. Been a loyal fan, watcher, or listener since the first days of Energy Crisis. I've not written in or commented due to the fact that I didn't want to burden you with having to read any more fan mail than you already do. I can only imagine how much hard work and detail goes into all the wonderful content that you produce. I felt compelled to write now, after all this time, because I just want to let you know how much your efforts have positively impacted me. I'm a big fan of all your shows, and I don't think I could possibly list a favorite, as each is special and charming in its own unique, respective ways. That being said, last week's VORW really hit home on me. I'm a very introverted person by nature, and I found your stance on friendship very enlightening. I'm pretty much a loner, and don't have many friends, and that's quite alright with me. After a hard day at work, I've gone home alone many a night to an empty apartment to listen to VORW. Without even knowing it, you've helped me through some tough times. Life can be cruel and hard at times, and I just want to let you know that your indomitable spirit is an inspiration, and even though I don't have many friends, I do consider you a friend even though we've never met. Thanks for all the hours of wisdom and wit over the years, and I hope that you realize for all the trolls that are out there to try to bring you down, there are far more true fans and friends who love what you're doing. Hope it's not too presumptive on my part to call you a friend, but to me that's exactly what you are. As for this question in 130, if Bigfoot is real, I must say that although I've never seen it or heard it, to my knowledge, I do believe in its existence. The best evidence I know is the famous or infamous Patterson Gremlin film, and I just believe the gait of the creature was not human, and that someday in the near future the beast will be proven real. Hope this makes it in time for 131, and I look forward to regularly writing in from now on. Thanks for being so brilliant, my friend. Your biggest fan, Braxton. Thank you for writing, Braxton, and the opinion that is contrary to the majority. Interesting to see. Thank you very much for writing. Hello, Review Bro. I've been listening to you for a few months now. Thought I'd send in my first email to VORW. In response to your question about cryptids, though I have never seen it myself, there is an apparent werewolf-esque creature that lives 2 minutes away from my house. I've attached a link for you to check it out, but it's basically called the Beast of Barmston Drain. Barmston Drain being a drainage ditch that runs near my house, the beast is apparently an 8-foot tall, half-man, half-dog creature, and has reportedly been seen eating a fully grown German Shepherd dog. There are also reports of ghostly children in the area that seem to vanish, and I myself have heard childish laughter once before at night. Look out the window thinking it was odd that children were out that late. I couldn't see a child in sight. Whether or not any of the stories are true is debatable, but it's made me think about cryptids and ghosts. I like to pretend that it doesn't affect me, but I never let my dog out of sight near the drain for fear that it's been eaten. My question for you is, do you believe in ghosts or ghostly entities? Thanks, however you from the Hull. They gave me the link, and yep, no, there it is. It's It's a legitimate article. Do I believe in ghosts? I don't. I don't believe in ghosts. I've never had any experiences with ghosts, and I think most of those shows about the ghosts are fake. But, you know, I'm open to the idea. If I see or have a paranormal experience, I'm open to change my mind. But, I mean, I've gone to so many haunted sites, haunted hotels, etc. Spent weeks at them. I mean, back in 2011, I was at the Stanley Hotel in Colorado. And, you know, from Ghost Hunters, that was supposed to be like the most haunted place ever. What happened? Absolutely nothing. Absolutely nothing. I even stayed in the hotel room where apparently the guy's door swung open from a ghost in the closet or something. Nothing happened. Not one bit. Nothing ever happened. So, you know, I haven't had an encounter since, so I can't say believe in ghosts. Let's see here. What do we have next? Dear lecturer, how are you doing? Hope you are feeling well. And I'm writing to you from a lovely courtyard which I've just discovered at my university. It is shaded by vines and ferns, reaching up to the sunlight that drips down. It is protected by a circle of late 80s designed buildings, complete with delightfully stained sandstone and lampposts, which probably serve no purpose other than to be decorative. I want to believe that mythical creatures exist. Unfortunately, my mind is shrouded by logic. If a Bigfoot were to exist, surely we would have found him by now. If not him exactly, then evidence of him. When I was a child, I was in awe of the giant squid. Just how could a creature like that exist? It completely baffled me. The giant squid is something akin to a monster out of a Mary Shelley novel, and it still manages to amaze me. Perhaps Bigfoot doesn't exist, but there is still plenty of brilliant creatures waiting to be discovered in the murky depths of the ocean. You have mentioned before that you listen to Radio Australia on Shortwave, and I was wondering whether you have heard the fanfare theme that plays before every hourly newscast. I've been listening to a lot of Radio National this month. One of my psychology lecturers even featured on a program. Every time the fanfare theme plays, I can't help but feel safe and relaxed. Yep. That's my very poorly done humming rendition of it, but if that's the fanfare you're talking about, then yes, I hear that every hour on hour from Radio Australia. So I've heard that many, many times, and it's always a comforting tune as well. You hear it, and you know the news is going to be there, and you got Radio Australia going, and absolutely. So, yep, I certainly do hear that every hour, absolutely. That's an iconic piece, and they do broadcast that over the shortwave as well. So yes, it's a piece that I'm very well familiar with. If that's the one you're talking about. And no, the giant squid, that's a great example. I mean, it's such a massive creature, and, it's been so seldom seen. It's crazy, The oceans, though, really, there's so little discovered in those. It's amazing. We want to explore the universe, yet we know so little about our own planet still. Hey there, I don't expect you to answer this or even read it, honestly. Well, no, I'm reading and answering it, so not to worry. I just want to let you know how much I enjoy your videos, particularly your VORWs. I know it sounds silly, but your honest opinion and worldviews make me feel less lonely. I'm an engineering student in my second year of university. I had to move away for university, and I haven't really made any friends here yet. Your videos are a great source of comfort to me. I watch them after I go to class, and they brighten my day. Especially your last VORW, number 130, about how you dislike social media and the vanity and narcissism of our generation. It's nice to know that I'm not entirely alone. I know you're going through a rough patch with other awful people on the internet, but I just want to let you know that you have many true fans out there. Kind regards, Stephanie. Thank you for writing, Stephanie. And, yeah, the internet is a cesspool. It is. And I think it's really a shameful thing that if I honestly don't think that future generations are going to be any better than the generations presently. But should they by any miracle be, and they look back and see everything archived on the internet, I think it'll be just, it's a shameful memory of how things are today. But, you know, the internet, it's just a cesspool of, you know, it's just a cesspool of degeneracy, narcissism, vanity, and, you know, just overall hatred, truth be told. Whether you're different from what the majority agrees on, you know, in a cultural sense or a political sense, or even just in any opinion about a celebrity or even cars or anything, you can just get bombarded with hatred. I mean, I do every single day. I get YouTubers that, you know, make fun of me. I get people that come on the channel literally several times an hour making fun of me, leaving nasty comments. And why? Because I'm different. Shows you how accepting society is, you know. When people preach over and over about how accepting society is today, look at the comments and, you know, go see for yourself, really. You know? Doesn't seem too accepting of me. I mean, why do people leave all these comments? Because I'm different, that's all. It's the only reason. Not different in the traditional sense, you know, but certainly something different out there, so I just say, you know, ignore them. Ignore them. They're all scum. They don't mean anything. They don't matter. Ignore them. And that's what I do. It's a shame, but I just have to remind myself sometimes that there are people out there that still genuinely watch my videos and listen to these broadcasts and, you know, genuinely do and genuinely care and consider themselves fans, and I say I do it for them. Keep going for them. That's what I do. I know there's a lot of degenerates out there now that try to contaminate everything, but there's some good people out there too. It's for those good people that I keep doing this for. Great example of those good people that I keep doing this for, all of you that write into this show. I think that's a prime example of really the people that keep this channel running, you know? Kind, well-mannered listeners and viewers with actual maturity, who will write with sincerity, honesty, and dignity. I think that's a great audience, and at least there's one aspect of the channel, the VORW shows, where that still does exist and is still very prevalent. Dear Review this is my second letter to you since my discovery of your channel a few days ago. I have been enjoying your content very much since then, and I find your VORW recordings particularly interesting. I appreciate the variation and organized nature of the show, and enjoy hearing your personal insights on various issues when answering listeners' questions. Please find attached 2 images I made from a cartoon I did of you. Feel free to share them or do with them what you like. My apologies for the low-quality editing, which is due to having to use an online picture editor. And P.S. Do you have a PayPal account that you can use for accepting direct donations to the channel? I ask as I'm not a member of Patreon and would not be comfortable making a public donation. No, not at this time. I apologize, but perhaps one day. We shall see. We shall see. And, thank you for the cartoon. It'll most definitely be featured in this program, so don't you worry there. And I like it. Thank you. I always appreciate the time and effort that people are actually willing to contribute to some of this fan art. It's incredible, really. Never would I have imagined in a million years that people would actually want to make drawings and paintings and pictures online of me to have them featured in a show like this. It's crazy. But I think the fan art is another special thing from, that this show has, to be able to feature it off to the listeners, and I think it's just a incredible thing, really. I remember when I first got my first piece of fan art back in 2013. I mean, now I have a couple hundred pieces, but I remember back in 2013, got my first piece of fan art, and it wasn't good by any means. It was this guy on the bodybuilding forums made a very crude drawing of me in a humorous manner. But it was still amazing because no one had ever drew me before. So, to actually have that, it was a special feeling. Despite that, now looking back, the drawing was actually borderline insulting. I didn't care. It didn't bother me one bit. Anyway, in this inbox we have one more email left. And then just a couple, I think 3 or 4 left in, 3 left in VORW info. Greetings again, Mr. Ba. Logan here from the Official Opinion channel. I'm glad to email you again. I've meant to do so for months now, but I finally got around to it here at 2 a.m. on September 7th. As I write this, I'm playing the second part of your random clip compilation. It's captivating to see the behind-the-scenes action of your videos. I've noticed something interesting too. You and I share very similar kitchen counter and cabinet styles. I don't know where to start with this email, as I have so much on my mind. In 8 hours, the Illinois statewide tornado siren test is set to begin. I have a hobby in them and like to record them from a couple hundred feet away while I go off. It's a very niche community of siren enthusiasts, but I digress. I've been working on a documentary surrounding Chicago's air raid warning siren system from the Cold War, which you've been nice enough to have lent your voice to us a couple of months ago. With all the research I have, I hope to have the documentary out on YouTube by the end of October, and you can watch and you can see how your voice work contributed to it. Oh yeah, I remember that. It's my pleasure to be able to help you out with that, give a little soundbite for your documentary. And now while I'm thinking of it, I'd like to share with you and listeners a passage from my dream journal from way back in May. You play a very interesting and unexpected role in it. May 6, 2016. I'm walking down the street coming home from Measure. Hope I pronounced that right. When I arrive, I go to my back door and I enter my house. As I walk in, I see my sister sitting on the couch in the living room watching television. Take my shoes off in the kitchen and become distracted for a moment. When I turn back to join my sister in the room, I see that a gang of desert marauders, resembling something out of the Road Warrior, has taken over my household. I retreat to my basement, only to find that they have a number of people down there as well. I leave the premises and walk a few blocks away to plan how I can take back my home. After I do that, I return to my property to see all of the marauders out in the backyard, and I wonder why they've moved outside. I get closer and closer only to see that they've been defeated and driven out of my house by someone else. Then I see the hero of the story, the man who saved my house. He stood there confident and proud. I've never met this man in person, but there he is. The man, the myth, the legend, Review Bra. A dream sequence ends. Oh my goodness, that is crazy. To be honest, I was surprised when I woke up that morning and thought back to this dream. I never would have expected you to come to Illinois to save a fan of yours from Mad Max characters who took over his home. If this happens in real life, I'll be sure to contact you with the bra signal. On the subject, do you have any recent interesting dreams you can share for us? I liked hearing the one about the bear you fought in your backyard that got caught in the storm door. That was amusing to hear. I'm doing some thinking. I remember having a bunch of dreams lately, but I just can't remember them at the time. I was also attached a piece of fan art and 2 questions. Perhaps asked before, but have you ever had the pleasure of eating at Culver's? They serve the most excellent cheeseburgers I've ever had from a fast food establishment. I don't know if there are any in Review Bra Land, but I would definitely check them out. No, but I got an email from Culver's earlier in the year. They said, oh, we'll pay you $250 and fly you out to Culver's if you can do a review for them. They said, just tell me where you are and we'll hook you up. And, so when you offer to fly someone out to someplace, you assume, all right, no matter where I am, they'll do it. So I tell them, all right, I'm in New York at the moment, and I'll gladly take the offer. I'd love to try some Culver's. I've never had it before. And they say, oh, I'm sorry, New York is too far. Have a good day. I said, all right. So I think they should have said, we'll fly you out if you're within proximity. Though, I mean, a flight to any Culver's isn't too far. Just a 3-hour flight, maybe. But I've never been able to have a Culver's yet, but I hope to. In the case, if you had to lose a limb, would you prefer losing a leg or your more often used arm? Oh, a leg. That would be, if I lost my right arm, I'd be losing my right hand. I'm a righty. That's I grab everything with. I write, I type with that. Oh, I'd much rather lose a leg. I mean, I could always get a prosthetic leg. Could still walk around with it. There's so many more options with a leg. You have, the dexterity of one's toes is not anywhere near as important as the dexterity of one's fingers in their dominant hand, which of course then belongs to your dominant arm. So I'd rather keep my arms, lose a leg, get a prosthetic, and I think that's a good deal all around. I mean, losing a limb is never a good deal, but should I ever have to lose one, that'd be that. And he says also, could you please recite the following lines? Sure. Forgive me. I feel it again. The pull of the light. Hold on, let me redo that. Forgive me. I feel it again. The pull to the light. Supreme Leader senses it. Show me again. The power of the darkness. And I will let nothing stand in our way. Show me, Grandfather, and I will finish what you started. I think that's all for tonight, but perhaps I'll email you again in the near future. That wasn't cobbed together while half asleep. Believe it or not, it took 46 minutes to write this. Thank you for your time and keep on bricking. Well, thank you very much for writing. And with that being said, we clear out. Let's refresh the page just to be safe here. All right, let's unmark his email since we read it. Refresh the page, nothing there. We'll close that and we'll move on to VORWinfo@gmail.com. And in there's 3 emails. And to the 3 of you who wrote in, who I'll be reading, thank you very much for writing and keeping the VORW info email address alive. So thank you for that. VORW 130, you did not answer my question, but that's no problem for me. I plan on listening to and writing to the program every week. And to answer your question, I do not believe that Bigfoot or a similar creature exists. If he did, don't you think they would have found some kind of fecal matter or hair samples of serious note? They have found some hairs before, but those have been tested time and again and prove not to be of any unknown creature. A large creature, such as Bigfoot, would be very hard to miss, even if it were as elusive as they say. Anyway, that's my answer, and I come asking you to read a classic poem, In Flanders Fields by John McCrae. In Flanders fields the poppies blow, between the crosses, row on row, that mark our place, and in the sky, the larks, still bravely singing, fly. Scarce heard, amid the guns below, we are the dead, short days ago. We lived, felt dawn, saw sunset glow, loved and were loved, and now we lie in Flanders fields. Take up our quarrel with the foe, to you from failing hands we throw. The torch be yours to hold it high, if ye break faith with us who die. We shall not sleep, though poppies grow in Flanders fields. Thank you, dear Review Father. Peace be with you, and have a wonderful week. From Erwin. Thank you for writing, Erwin. Great to hear from you, and thank you for that very nice poem, by the way. Dear John, to answer your question from the last VORW, I can't say I believe in Bigfoot. Humans would have hunted something that size down and killed it successfully centuries ago. The other thing that bothers me is that there haven't been any bones, or they haven't found any bones that belonged to members of this species. Even if they disposed of their dead in some way, there would still be some other evidence of their existence. Now there are only stories from people and questionable video footage. As for cryptids in general, I don't believe in anything specific. I only feel like there could be something yet to be discovered in the vast oceans, as 95% of that realm remains unexplored. Thank you for taking the time to read my letter. All the best from Maria. P.S. I did include a drawing of you holding a cryptid of sorts, the elusive pepperoni beast. Thank you for that drawing. It's very nice, and there I am, holding a pepperoni beast, and there it goes, saying, Daddy. It's a happy little pepperoni beast, and there's some cheese in the background in its natural habitat as well. Very nice drawing. Thank you very much for that. Thank you for writing in, as always, and thank you for keeping the VORW info inbox alive. And now the final letter we got. And then we'll check the YouTube inbox just to be safe, you know. Just in case, I'll be generous, and we'll see if anyone wrote in last minute. We'll read their letter. Hey Review Bro, longtime fan from the B9 board. Got my friends Craig and Hannah into the videos recently, and trying to get my friend Dom into them, but he's a true stick in the mud. Been intimidated by the length of the VORW videos, but recently gave them a shot, and love them. Great programs. I'm going to school for creative writing and curious what styles of writing/writers you read most often. You may have been asked/answered this before. Still working through the lengthy back catalog. Would be happy to read and respond to your short stories. Next to the great channel, from Cole. P.S. Would love to see you do the fresco variants on the Taco Bell menu. Well, thank you very much. That was from the B9 board. That goes back to 2013. That was a hard rock forum, essentially, where my videos were shared, and there was a nice community there for a while that I hung out with. Sorry, my voice is going. I'm going to take another sip. No, anyways. I honestly prefer creative writing myself. Doesn't need to have any set limit. Sometimes I'll write more mystery type stories. Sometimes I'll write stories that are more perhaps horror. Sometimes I'll try to write a story that'll make you think. And I try to just add my own little personal touch to topics that may have been used before. But I just do whatever I feel like I'm doing. I know some people will solely, write mystery stories, or others will exclusively write action stories. I myself, I'll just write whatever comes to mind, usually. So, really anything that comes to mind, I'll take a look at and expand to that, perhaps. Let's check out the comments and the messages. Anything here? Let's see. No. No, the YouTube inbox is empty. Okay. Comments. Oh, a great comment on the latest video from Domino's. What a waste of time. Well, if you think it's a waste of time, I hope you didn't watch the whole video. But if that is the case, I take great pleasure in wasting your time. Anyways, ladies and gentlemen, that's what I got for you. This is VORW, the voice of the Report of the Week. Remember, the question for this program was of the next existential nature. Simply put, if you were offered immortality, would you take it? Yes or no? And you could elaborate why as well. Remember the consequences, but also remember that you have all the time in existence to possibly do something about it, about impending fate. So think about it, and looking real forward to hearing from you all. To all the regular writers and supporters, thank you very much. It's you guys who I keep this channel going for, and you should really take pride in yourself for that. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that being said, thank you very much. Hope you enjoy this show. It was a pleasure to make it, and I hope you all have a great week ahead, great weekend, and we'll catch you all next week with another VORW. Thank you again. You can write into us via one of three ways. YouTube.com/user/ReportOfTheWeek. Click on the About tab and send the message off to there. If you're more of an email person, you can send it to the main email address, repweekinterview1@gmail.com. That's REPWEKINTERVIEW1, the number 1, @gmail.com. Or if you'd like to keep the VORW info email address alive, right there, again, VORWINFO@gmail.com. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for listening, and have a good one. Thank you and take care. VORW 131 concluded.